Okay, dokie. Welcome to the live or VOD if you're a VOD watcher. And yeah, this is the Chiori stream. So I don't know why I went to the banner screen. I'm not wishing today. Chiori is the title was not a lie, or the thumbnail. I don't know. I wanted to like Chiori. I do not like her, and I say that as someone, you know, I just made a video about Yai today, and basically the entire video is me being like, oh, you know, off-field characters are great, and Chiori is an off-field character. So like on paper, if you tell me, right, if I had been told before I saw what Chiori's kit actually was, like, oh, okay, Chiori, this is not what I would have wanted Chiori to be necessarily before leaks. Like, you can go back and like look at my streams, and I was like, okay, would like Chiori to be some kind of like 5-star version of Goro. That would be kind of cool, right? But she's not that. Instead, what we got was an off-field DPS. But, you know, again, before we actually saw her kit, if I was just told, like, okay, Chiori is an off-field, skill-based DPS unit. Okay, you know what? Like that's interesting on a baseline level. That's not a bad thing, right? If you followed like my thoughts about Navia, both before and after her release, like I made the whole video about, you know, I was right about Navia, wherein like I really appreciated how their approach to Navia's design was more aligned with what I see as an ideal with Geo, in that like Mono Geo is kind of a solved thing. There's not much they can do to improve Mono Geo that's not just like straight up power creeping old units. And therefore, like, okay, what do Geo units have relevance for outside of Mono Geo, right? New Geo units. And I think the most relevant thing Geo can do is, by nature of the fact that Geo does not interact very much with the other elements, I think Geo has the ability to be the flex slot element, right? Wherein, okay, you know the fact that, you know, your off-field Geo unit is not going to interfere that much with your other things, your other reactions you have going on. Say you're trying to do, you know, vape reactions, whatever. That's one of the reasons, like, Zhongli is a good generic defensive unit. It's because he doesn't interfere much with the other things you have going on. And he can just be a generic protective unit that buffs a little bit and keeps you alive. So I think Geo fulfills that potential ideal, right? That's where Geo can be relevant by nature of taking advantage of the fact that it doesn't interact, right? There can be advantages to Osmanthus wine. So,
Osmanthus wine tastes
bro.
the same as I remember.
So anyways, I'm gonna let my chat build up a little bit, and I'll get more in depth of building on that point, though, of why Chiori does not fulfill that ideal. And instead they're very clearly going with a specific idea in mind for what they wanted Chiori to be, and I think that idea is incredibly dumb. It's like, this is not a thing we needed in the game, and it makes her a nearly useless unit. To be clear, in the like, it's a problem with a lot of Mono Geo related things. But yeah, I don't know. I think if you're someone who is interested in Chiori and you still want to pull her, she's one of the units in the game that's going to be the hardest to feel like you can get value out of, is my guess. But she's not going to be impossible. But anyways, she doesn't have like C6 Bennett shenanigans even, man. It's like, oh man, like, well, she does have C6 Bennett shenanigans, but they're goofy. And anyways, whatever. I'll talk about it in a little bit. So, I don't know. The whole next patch, by the way, is just, oh my god. The 4.5 is just, ugh. The only thing interesting about 4.5 is the new banner that's supposedly coming, which we have no actual good info about how it actually works, so, you know, who knows with that, right? I might talk about that more in this video as well, but anyways, let me look through the chat. Also, I forgot to bring up my viewer dashboard to make sure my stream is working fine. My stream is apparently not working fine. Stream's current bitrate is nothing. What is happening? Can you guys actually hear me? Because what is happening? I have a green, like, OBS is green for me, but it says 38 kilobits per second. That's extraordinary. Oh, no. Okay, it says like 2,000. Okay, we're fine.
Most humans could have the entirety of their fleeting lives chronicled in but a few
okay, let me, why is it only like streaming at 2,000? What's going on? Let me look at my settings quick. Output. It reset to 2,500. What? Freaking, okay. Whoops. Here, let me fix that. The stream probably looks god-awful ugly. Alright. Back up to 6,500 kilobits per second. Hopefully that looks a bit better. Not that you notice anything when I'm just on the still image here, but bitrate is something that you'll notice more when, you know, moving around and whatnot. But streams on YouTube always look a little bit chunky, is what I would... Now would be a good time to insert ads. I just started the stream, YouTube. F off. Like, no, not inserting ads now. Good lord. YouTube automatically inserts ads, to be clear. But, like, I have no idea why it's being like, you should insert ads right now. No. I can't shrink my window anymore. Okay, well, that's fine. Alright. Sorry, I have planned for this stream. Where's my dashboard? Let's get that up. And have 50 viewers already. That's good, because that means I can... 50 viewers is the amount where I'm just like, yeah, I can comfortably just talk about things. And anyone that joins late is their problem. They can... they can... the nice thing about YouTube streams is you can join in the stream and go back and see what the heck I was talking about. Unlike Twitch, where you just jump in and you can't rewind it all. It's... yeah. So... They announced Chiori's kit? No, I mean, well, yeah, the beta. By the way, Amber.top is, like, dead. Not dead, it still exists, but as far as I'm aware, they're not updating it anymore. Or maybe they're only updating it for release information. So they're not updating it for the beta kit, so I can't even, like, show you any nice interface stuff on the stream here. So I'm just going to have to go off of stuff, mostly off of memory, and I'll double-check things if I need to. But if you want Chiori's kit information, the main database that's updating it is Homdcat, HOMDG cat. But you can navigate to the website wise. It's just character.wiki, https://char.wiki, and then it'll direct you to a site that I think you still have to if you speak English like I do, and you know, not whatever else, like Chinese, whatnot. I don't know what languages the site operates in, but there's a switch to English button at the very top, and that has all the updated information with a record of the changes as well from a drop-down. It's nowhere near as nice of an interface as Amber.top is, but Oilverse has removed support apparently from, you know, lots of third-party websites, which is a big, like, it's a bigger problem in my opinion. This is not recent. They've been doing this like over time, since 3.0 or something. They've been just removing like support for external websites and like giving data to them, and that makes it a lot harder for like people that like make Amber.top to run their website, and that's a bit oof, because like that's Hoyleverse removing things that are like beneficial to the community, right? Why? Well, I think the answer is obvious. They want you to remain ignorant, because if you're ignorant, it's more likely you'll make bad decisions when polling, and if you make bad decisions when polling, you're more likely to spend more money. So, you know, there you go. Anyways, hello. Let's, greetings, oh slender-fingered one. I came from the Vision Pro video. Okay, welcome. I'm glad some people... that Vision Pro video has been done better than I expected thus far, which is cool. So, anyways, we're going to be talking about, slender-figured one. I guess that is a good way to... I did notice, like, I swear to you, my hands don't look that skeleton-y in real life. Maybe they do, and I just... Like, I'm looking at my hands right now. I don't have a camera on, obviously. I'm looking at my hands right now. I'm just like, they don't look that skeleton-y. But when I, like, edited my Vision Pro video, I'm like, boy, do my hands look very, like, long and skeleton-y. It's like there's no flesh on them. But it's fine. It's fine. Anyways, what did I miss in chat? Is Chiori bad? Bad is the wrong word to describe Chiori. We should go, like, do things, by the way. Bad is the wrong way to describe Chiori. Well, okay, is it actually? I don't know. I might have Binge joining me, by the way, to talk about Chiori, because Binge is a person on my Discord server. He's been fairly active, and I consider him a friend of mine now, too. Talking with him a lot about Genshin things. And he is much more experienced with Mono Geo than I am, and in particular Ito, who Chiori was definitely made for. But basically, in the context of specifically a Mono Geo Ito team, Chiori can be a slight upgrade. Can. But the problem is that Geo, like Mono Geo, didn't really didn't really need that much of a slight upgrade, right? Like the problem with Mono Geo is like its ability to deal with different things. And Binge, as a hardcore Ito enthusiast, will if he joins here. Oh, he did join. Hello, Binge. So Binge, sorry, Binge, I'm gonna finish my thought, and then you can talk. Well, you can talk now, but Binge is a hardcore Ito enthusiast, and I think that's not an incorrect way to describe Binge. And then he's gone to using Ito in non-Mono Geo fashion, like with Farina and like with Cloud Retainer even, and that has done a lot more for him than a new Geo unit that's a very minor upgrade to Mono Geo. And anyways, like adding more elemental coverage to it. Yeah, welcome. Adding more elemental coverage to a Geo team generally can to an Ito team, I should say, can do more for Ito than a new Geo unit that would benefit him only in Mono Geo. And Chiori has problems with Ito specifically, most notably that if you don't play with Zhongli or Geo Traveler, I guess, she's not an upgrade for Ito. or well, not that she's not an upgrade, but it would force you to do an Ito rotation that makes you use Ushi earlier than you would normally want to use, is my understanding, which is really dumb, like incredibly dumb, in my opinion. So, anyways, before we get too into those nuances, though, I should talk about, like, I'm just jumping on the roof again. Before we get too into those nuances, we should like just describe her general kit to get an understanding of her at a baseline, I suppose. So anyways, welcome, Binge. Sorry for talking over you a little bit. Do you want to talk a little bit?
No, you didn't talk over me at all.
Okay, I think
I'm
you're
the guest. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I think it was the first time I had you on a live stream, which is cool. So, Binge is here for the Mono Geo perspective because here's my Geo characters. I have Yunjin built. I like Noelle, and neither of these I use in like Mono Geo context. I have Goro, only C4, and yep, there you go. That's the Geo characters I have. I am not a Mono Geo enjoyer, and for someone like me, it's basically impossible to get meaning like because I don't have Zhongli, and I probably wouldn't really care to use Geo Traveler Chiori. Like, Chiori would be worse than Albedo, I think, for me. I'm pretty sure. So, like there's actually more things Chiori could be useful for. So, anyways, Binge is streaming. Here, I'm just going to mute your thing.
I thought I'd, offer
I'll
live examples of...
Yeah, I will open that up, potentially, and stream your stream, which is going to work perfectly if once we get to that point, I think. I'm just gonna mute it for now, though. Is she gonna be a standard 5-star? And I think she is standard 5-star tier personally. If she was standard 5-star, I'd be okay with her. I think. She's probably not, though. Based on how they're balancing her, I think they're very clearly trying to balance Chiori. I should like just start describing her kit rather than keep on rambling about different things about her. I think they very clearly are trying to balance her in a way that like. She replaces Albedo and Mono Geo Ito team specifically, mostly, because that's like the main Mono Geo team, other than I guess Noelle, but like Noelle has better options now too nowadays, with Farina like a lot better options, and because of how strong her synergy is with Farina, so but anyways, like with Ito specifically, basically with Ito Mono Geo, she can be an upgrade over Albedo, but they're very clearly...
specifically like...
But they want Albedo to still have a place, here, right. They want Albedo to still have a place, so they're very clearly putting things in her kit that make her not always an upgrade.
Similar.
Yes.
similar to Albedo. So like, and that's a really good segue into what it is her skill accomplishes on field.
Yeah, so let's before we get too into let's properly describe her kit. So she's mostly a defense scaling unit. She's dual scaling technically, so same as like Nahida, for example. Dual scaling, not split scaling. Dual scaling is where in Nahida's damage, right, does a percentage of attack and a percentage of EM is how the game calculates her damage at a baseline, right? And Chiori is the same way, except for not EM. That would be weird for a Geo unit. Chiori is defense mostly. I think, what is it, like probably 80% of her damage is defense scaling, I think. Something around the lines. More than a majority, right? A vast majority is defense scaling. So you build her with defense, basically.
Well,
but she still has
part of that is another. So like aside from just the multipliers, the one thing to remember about any character that scales with with
Geo.
defense is going to have more stat value in defense.
Yeah.
Goblets for attack provide 46 or 48.6 or something like that.
It's
if I recall correctly.
Yeah, 46.6, and I think it's 51.8 for defense percent.
58.3 for defense.
Oh, sorry, 58. I was getting mixed up with ER.
Yeah. Yep. And the
substat value is also higher.
Stat, or base stat is so like you're just getting more out of defense no matter what.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, defense is a really nice to have a defense scaling character. I think one of my main problems with Navia was I think she should have been defense scaling, or I think the best thing for Navia would have been if she was dual scaling like Chiori. But either way, her being dual scaling is good in that like she can gain potential meaningful benefit from being paired with Bennett in some. Well, she doesn't snapshot actually, so. So not really, but I guess if you're on fielding, if you're C6 singer and you're on fielding her, she gains like having some attack scaling gives her benefit to have value not just from Bennett but also from attack percent like substats, right? It means that you're getting more value than you otherwise would be, but you're not, because the majority of her damage is defense scaling. You bill her for defense, so she is a defense scaler that has some minor additional value from attack. That's the best way to think about it. I think that's a good thing about her kit. I think the main way like any problems the artifact system has, I think the source of the problems is that stats don't feel valuable enough. Like you don't keep artifacts that have high amounts of flat stats because not that many characters care about flat stats. But there are characters like Nilu, for example, where she basically, a high investment Nilu build only cares about building HP, right? So to fix like the artifacts being, the RNG system of artifacts is less bad when more stats are valuable, right? And a big problem I think defense has, and why oftentimes defense is a useless stat, is because there's not many defense scaling characters in the game. I think there is, let's see, there's Ito, right? There's Chiori, there is Yunjin, and then is there anyone else I'm missing?
Xinyan.
Xinyan. Okay, yeah. So there's like 4, right? And like that's not a lot. So anyways, it's a good thing. It's a good thing that she's defense scaling. It's a really, really good thing. What were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, it's better to have more defense scaling units. I being a Geo enjoyer, and not having the same opinion about Geo that a lot of other people have, I also think that especially for on-field characters or characters that have a part of their kit that enable them to be on-field, defense is an important stat, for sure. Specifically for Crystallize, because your effective HP increases based on your defense if you have a Crystallize shield up. Yeah,
the defensive utility of defense scalers is definitely not insignificant, particularly as they've been making enemies that hit harder and harder. I don't know if we've actually had any confirmation of it, but I thought I saw someone mention passingly on my Discord that the local legends, right? Like I've been trying to fight the local legends more, like Liam, in my Yai video, or no, sorry, that's video tomorrow. In my Sucrose video tomorrow, and he hits hard, and that's in Overworld. He'll hit harder potentially in Abyss. and therefore defensive utility is potentially high. So, you know, we should acknowledge that as being a good thing, of course. Yeah, so other than that, so she's a defense scaler. Her normal attacks are completely attack scaling, though. So without her C6, at least, I believe she only gets defense scaling normal attacks at C6, which, woo. So, whoop-de-doo, in that regard. Yeah, she has a passive that gives her a normal attack infusion. I'll talk about that a little bit more later, but it's relatively unimportant. You're not normally on-fielding her, because the main thing about her kit that she is designed around is her skill-based damage. So she does off-field skill-based damage in the kind of the same vein as Yai, actually, is probably how I describe it at a fundamental baseline, wherein you use her skill, and she places a doll down, like kind of like Yai's turret, which stays in place in one spot, and then when an enemy is within range, it will attack those enemies, right? It will deal damage at set intervals to those enemies. And at a baseline, Chiori only summons one of these things, and you can get 2 of them summoned, though. And the way you get 2 of them summoned, though, is you have to have a construct on field. And this is where I have a problem with Chiori's kit. Because what I mentioned, so Binge, I mentioned early in the stream where, like, I think what the ideal of, like, what Geo can be moving forward is, like, what I mentioned to you with Navia and some lag picking up that, wherein Geo could be like the flex slot element, right? So at a baseline, an off-field Geo unit that does skill-based damage, I think could be useful as a character you could slot into just your flex slot in a lot of teams, right? But Chiori is made to basically say she does a lot less damage, and she's entirely balanced around the fact that you want to have a construct in order to get 2 dolls out, which is like the equivalent of, you know, 2 Yai turrets, or sorry, like, you know, half of your Yai turrets instead of only 1 Yai, or all of your Yai turrets, right? So she loses a lot of damage potential if you don't have a construct out. And the problem is you have to have a construct out before, like, when you cast her skill. So with someone like Ito, normally you wouldn't, like, if you're playing Ito without Zhongli, right? Someone like Ito, you cast his skill. This is my characters. You cast his skill, and then you can switch to Chiori, and she'll get 2 dolls. But normally you don't do that. You do Ushi. Am I incorrect? Right? You normally do Ushi like in the middle of his sequence, right?
Right.
Like that.
So yeah. So okay. So in the context of Geo, you're dealing with a reactionless character. And so obviously what you want to do is maximize all of your scaling damage as best you can for the last multiplier you get to be your crit damage. So that means you really need that high base defense or base attack depending on how your character scales. You just want that to be as high as possible, so your Geo percent damage bonus that you're hopefully getting buffed from your allied characters and having a Geo Goblet then gets further boosted by your crit damage. And in Ito's case, the way his kit works is he is attack scaling entirely, but when his burst is active, he translates all of his gathered defense into his total attack score, and at higher efficiency than, say, like just giving him attack would be. So it's 104% of his defense gets translated into attack percent. Or I'm sorry, just attack and added to his attack. So ideally you want to swap to Ito, burst, and then throw your Ushi in order to make your Ushi hit probably about as hard as like how Zhongli's meteor hits.
So it's important for his damage contribution.
Twice in his rotation.
Yeah, and you don't do it. You don't do it before you switch to Chiori, right? So that is to say, like, Ushi counts as a construct for Chiori, but functionally not if you're playing Ito like you normally would to optimize your damage output for Ito, which you want to do. And so that means the options for Geo construct creating characters that we would use to actually utilize Chiori's kit fully to get the max damage out of her is Geo Traveler, Zhongli, and Albedo. And Albedo, you're not really going to use with Chiori because she's basically a replacement for Albedo in context where she makes sense. So it's basically Zhongli or Geo Traveler, and Zhongli. When we're talking about Geo Traveler, it's basically Zhongli, right? So, oh my god, bro, with your Osmanthus wine. So imagining how to use Chiori without Zhongli is a bit. Do you concur with that statement? That's in the way I think about her, at least. I can't envision her being particularly useful without Zhongli.
I find her so Mono Geo right now, and part of why I don't like Mono Geo is that you have a very specific team. It's very very linear. In order to maximize Goro, you want 3 Geo units, and in order to keep Ito from dying, you either need to have a strong elemental applicator who can consistently get you crystallized shards, or Zhongli. And Zhongli is also one of the few ways that Geo has to shred resistance against enemies. So your highest damage output is going to be Zhongli, Goro, Ito, and Albedo currently.
Yeah, Ningguang has a construct as well. I'm sorry, but
Ningguang has a construct as well, which is.
I want to talk about the problems with constructs in general. By the way, I like the idea of construct synergy. By the way, but this is not construct synergy. This is constructs. Oh, you for not using a construct synergy. I don't know. This character doesn't function without constructs. Not gives benefit to using constructs.
At C0 specifically.
Yes.
It's highly dependent on your ability to set up the field.
Yeah, Zhongli has more construct synergy than Chiori does.
And that's
on paper, what
that's an interesting
his kit functions. I shouldn't say it's damage output.
Well.
Yeah, but C6 Farina. Yeah, C6 Farina is the solution to every team.
I lots of things can be solved with Chiori and cons, but the main thing to look at here is what Mono Geo looks like currently, how it functions properly with its characters, and what sort of anti-synergy might we see with Chiori, and as a replacement for who. So if you replace Zhongli, then what you're doing is you're missing your shielding opportunity. Geo doesn't have healers, really, other than Noelle and Prototype Amber Ningguang. So that's a risky situation. It doesn't mean it's not viable. But you're also not getting a lot because Albedo's performance in Mono Geo is mostly as a battery.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you get him to have
Chiori's
ridiculous
not a great battery.
So if you replace, and that goes into my next point, if you leave Zhongli in there and you replace Albedo with Chiori, you may start to have energy issues where you need to run Goro on Exiled instead of Noblesse, which is a problem for Ito's damage. And it doesn't mean you won't be getting anything, but positioning is going to be really, really important. And one of the really cool things about Mono Geo is how lacking it is in circle impact. You could argue that Albedo's flower is circle impact, but you don't really need to operate within it. And Goro's burst follows you around for its duration, which is really how viable Ito's damage is in Mono Geos, is when Goro's burst is up. So there's just a couple problems with okay, so who do you replace in Mono Geo?
Yeah. And the most obvious one is likely Albedo, but Albedo's also probably the least necessary, as you're describing, right? For Mono Geo.
Right. So you can replace Albedo in Mono Geo with quite a few other units.
Exactly,
You'll get
yeah.
lower damage per rotation because Albedo does a non-negligible amount of damage while being a battery. But that doesn't mean that other options are necessarily bad. You could replace Albedo with a Favonius Bennett and play a little Circle Impact, and Ito's damage will pretty much skyrocket. And you can also mitigate some of the damage loss by
And Albedo.
at the end of Bennett's burst duration, swapping to Zhongli and smacking him with a rather hefty meteor, which isn't bad. You can slot in Kuki Shinobu as a healer and get
flavor
some
win.
electro-crystallized reactions. Yeah, and you get the flavor win of, you know, playing a little more thematic. And that's to say, like, in Mono Geo, it's an interesting team because there's so many damage contributors, you know, with the 4 Geo units. But at the end of the day, Ito is still the highest, the highest amount of damage in the team.
Yep. So, anyways, I think we got slightly off track in describing her kit. Probably should have finished that her burst is just like a 1 instance of damage. It's a big instance of damage, but they also nerfed it recently. So I don't remember what its multipliers are now after the nerf. And
the nerf was just a 40% damage reduction in,
for her burst
in scaling.
Yeah,
which, like I said, is a lot because Geo doesn't have reactions. They did lower the burst cost, but then they also changed how she generates energy.
Yep.
So it's moot. It really didn't do much of anything.
Didn't change much functionally, but it's also just like, why did it really matter? So they lowered the energy cost. So like, anyways, so yeah, she requires constructs, right? And as far as like constructs energy goes, I like Zhongli has constructs energy in that there's microwave Zhongli team compositions that are varying degrees of, you know, good, but basically Zhongli will just like make other constructs on field pulse just like his pillar normally pulses, and that is constructs energy, right? That's an incentivization to play a bunch of constructs and getting benefit from them. Chiori is just, oh, you didn't use constructs, you don't get this character's full kit. It's not the same thing. It's not what we want to see from construct synergy, and also constructs have problems that, you know, most people are generally aware of if they've tried to use constructs to any meaningful degree, and that's that they break. Like this big freaking whale enemy, if I tried to put Zhongli's pillar on it, it would just not spawn. It would just get broken as soon as the whale went into it. And that's bad. Right. So, you know, oh, let's not die. Oh boy. Not paying attention very well. So, yeah, there's going to be like situations where like whenever you're using Chiori, you're going to have to actively try to make sure you know don't spawn your Zhongli pill in the wrong spot. And I don't know. I think they could have to mitigate this. I think they could have mitigated a number of things by with like Chiori's functionality. Like, I think Chiori is instantly suddenly an interesting character if they say recoded some things to account. You might disagree with this, Binge, I don't know, but I feel like if they recoded things like, I don't know, Guoba counting as a construct, I think suddenly she's a much more useful character, right? Because now there's many more characters that could actually trigger her passive, and then now she can fulfill that role of being a Geo unit that's an off-field DPS flex slot. Just as long as you have any number of characters that generate something that stays in the field. So like Yai's turrets maybe could count as a construct. Xiangling's Guoba could count as a construct. Heck, you know, maybe
Baron
Inferna's Baron Bunny, yeah. So, you know, would that make her a ton better? No, but it would actually give her relevance to be used with a lot more characters. But it doesn't.
In chat, somebody mentioned the cooldown for Chiori's burst was reduced.
Oh, did they?
But I have to stress that the amount that it was when it was released was perfect for an Ito rotation, and now her burst comes back before the end of an Ito rotation. So this means it's more anti-synergy with Ito because swapping off of him before his burst ends is CPS loss.
And generally speaking, the answer would be you just wouldn't swap off him before his burst ends for Chiori.
Right.
So it just is a nothing change functionally.
Yep.
In that context, I'm not saying it would never be beneficial in certain contexts. So, last thing we should probably talk about is her passive. She has a passive that either gives her infusion or gives her the additional doll, I believe, from the construct spawning, if I recall. I think it's the passive that technically does it. The other part of her passive, if you choose to, you can have a Geo infusion after using her skill instead of. I should probably try to kill this dude. Instead of the additional the doll from off field with the construct. But again, her normal attacks are attack scaling, so it's mostly like a thing that exists for her C6, as far as I can tell. And I think it's actually an annoying downside with her, because normally melee units, like, let's say you wanted to DPS, on-field DPS any melee in the game, you know, there's options for that. Notably, you know, for example, we have like the Freda, Cloud Retainer, and then C6 Bennett, and you can turn any melee unit into a Vape unit combo. Chiori has this annoying thing where, like, if you use her skill and do her infusion, she won't, like, her Geo infusion might interfere with being able to get vapes because she's doing Geo damage from her normal plunge charge attacks, which is dumb. But she doesn't have the line that says it can't be overridden, so I don't know exactly how it's going to play out because infusion priority is kind of goofy. So it might be that Bennett just overrides it all the time anyways. And that could be actually a good thing. So she might still work for like that on-field vape playstyle, but realistically, that's kind of the problem. Is like if you want to on-field her without her C6, the Geo infusion is kind of pointless because it's just going to be smarter if you want to on-field her to do something like a vape playstyle with Bennett, right? With Bennett C6, and so it's like what is the point of the Geo infusion then? Well, I think nothing until her C6. I think it would have been much more interesting. I think Chiori instantly becomes, again, an interesting character. If she does what she does, has the problems she has, even with Construct's anti-synergy or synergy, whatever you want to call it, and if she gave other characters a Geo infusion, because suddenly, I don't know, infusions are just fun, even if infusions aren't that good. Like, a Geo infusion would not break the game open, to say the least, I don't think. It would be interesting, I think, in the ability to, like, a Geo infusion, for example, on melee units would be random incidental additional crystallizes that in a team that could be additional defensive utility that might be more valuable than you might expect sometimes. Just in the same vein that, like, Xingqiu, a big part of what makes Xingqiu as valuable and strong as a unit is his defensive utility, right? You can easily run healerless teams with just Xingqiu as your defensive unit, depending on how well you play and the enemies and how, you know, and whatnot. But point is, like, a little bit of a defensive utility can oftentimes be enough. And a Geo infusion could have been more defensive utility at a baseline minimum. Like, just infusing your Kazuha with Geo means you might be able to get a little bit of crystallizes when you're doing Kazuha on field for half a second, or you're on field or whatever. But even past that, you know, so I don't have Zhongli on this count, but, like, I think someone like DPS Zhongli with a Geo infusion doing, I don't know, Mono Geo Zhongli with Zhongli on-fielded, you know, if Chiori infused as an off-field DPS, and then, like, Yunjin for increasing Zhongli's, like, normal attack damage, and he has a fast normal attack chain, he could output a very high amount of damage, of Geo-infused damage, in quite a short succession. And again, Zhongli has actual construct synergy, so you could do something like, you know, I don't know, what, Albedo, Zhongli, full mono Geo, Albedo, Zhongli, Yunjin, Chiori. I think that would have been interesting, but, like, for, like, on-fielding Zhongli with a Geo infusion. But she doesn't actually give other characters Geo infusions. I'm just kind of theory crafting some minor additional things that could have existed in her kit that instantly make her an interesting character that wouldn't, like, oh my god, she breaks the balance of the... Like, no. Like, that wouldn't break the balance of the game. That would just be fun. But it seems like Mihoyo hates fun. That's my problem with Chiori, is she's boring. She does, like, almost nothing.
And to be clear, like, Chiori will do damage.
Yes, she's not going to be bad. That's why I'm not going to call her bad. She's just boring.
And one thing that she does, her coordinated attacks, because it's going to be a freestanding, like, almost like a Farina unit, but it doesn't move.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
It will attack enemies that have shields.
True. Yeah.
And that's actually a big problem with Albedo. Albedo cannot do damage to enemies that have a shield up. So Abyss Heralds, it's useless to even swap onto him when you're fighting a Herald. It's absolutely useless. It does nothing for you. He can't generate the extra energy that you use to battery things with. It's just awful. So there are some caveats that make her okay, but I think what most people are tired of in terms of like Geo having boring issues is like Geo characters aren't doing anything new.
Yes. Yeah.
Navia did something new in opening up Geo to extra mono Geo gameplay. I also think that by extension, because of how I run my Ito teams, Farina and Xinyan also did that.
Yep.
Jianyan, sorry.
Yeah. Difference. There's a big difference there.
Yes, there is. But with being able to allow Crystallize to work and giving the Geo reaction some sort of field time, some usefulness, it's kind of made Geo a little bit more interesting for me again. But you're absolutely on the nose. Like, this does not make constructs more appealing. This doesn't change mono Geo at all. The damage will be a little bit different, but considering what everybody's gotten in Fontaine, with Farina, with Nouvelette, with Rio, with
we have
Liney being like an absolute monster in Mono Pyro. We've got a whole new Geo unit that utilizes kind of a really difficult aspect of Geo kits to make work, which is constructs. Does nothing for them, and then it might give a mono Geo team like a DPR increase of like 13%, and that's not significant these days.
Yep. DPR is DPS per rotation, by the way. So yeah, is there anything I think we forgot? I we could like go into more hypotheticals, like if she was a healer, which I don't know, how do you rebalance her damage if she was a healer? I don't know. But like if she was a healer, I think she would have been even healer, more interesting, because like we have no good Geo healer. C4 Goro does not count. Noelle is a better Geo healer.
If she were a healer, she would suddenly give a spot for Farina in teams where Geo was the healing thing.
Yep.
So there's lots of cool things that could be done with her kit. Her cons essentially lead her to be the on-field
and her
carry.
So the chat has mentioned the C1. We might want to mention her C1. Yes, her C1 gives her 2 dolls without a construct, so literally removes any construct things at all. That just gets rid of the facade of construct synergy is basically what her C1 does. So like if you wanted just an off-field Geo applier for Navia, well, hello, LOL, get her C1. So she's not the Navia unit that anyone wanted. She is, I don't know, she fulfills almost nothing for most people, I think. But like any unit, it's not like it'll be impossible to get value out of her. It's just going to be harder, and I think like she's a new low in my opinion for the design of off-field units, considering off-field units are normally more useful at a baseline. So yeah, this might be the only video I like make on my channel about Chiori, and I don't have the things on my account, and there's nothing really interesting for me to mention, I think, unless I have some horribly wrong take in this video that I need to correct or something. But yeah, so I don't know. Do I do account reviews? That's kind of what the account fixing things are. So, you know. Let's see. I'm gonna scan through my chat, see if I missed anything. She's not really bad. She's just super boring. Yeah, that's basically what I think about Chiori right now as well. Um, would you say she's bad enough to go to standard banner? I mean, I think she is. I don't know. Like, again, there's like strong standard banner characters. Tignari is a better standard banner character than Chiori would be if she's a standard banner. But like, is that even a fair comparison? But I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't think she's going to be standard banner, basically. But it also wouldn't surprise me if they did say, surprise, she's standard banner, like Dia. But like, the decisions with Dia was a more interesting character because she was just so confusing. But like, even Dia, I think, has more potentially ease of like potentially finding use cases for an account than Chiori would be. Like, I think it's going to be easier to get use out of Dia than Chiori. And that's kind of like, not that one or the other is better or worse, but that I think it's, if you liked either of these characters, it would be easier to find use out of Dia. And at least Dia, to me, is someone I find really interesting to some degree for how not great she is. there's a reason I double crowned her. But anyways, I don't know. She might be standard. If she does end up standard banner, that doesn't make her a better character. It
makes her C1 a little better.
Yeah, it makes her C1 a little bit better. Yeah, and it makes some of the decisions around her more justifiable. Because you have to recontextualize. Yeah, the ability to acquire constellations, particularly the lower constellations, is much more likely. Not likely. Like, I still don't have Dia C1. I would love to. It would help Dia a lot, but I don't. So, you know, it just is what it is. Okay, yeah. I think. How better would she be if the second doll was formed after triggering a crystallize instead of a construct? Meaningfully better, because she could be used in a lot more teams, right? If she was incentivizing more like crystallized things like Navia, right? One, she would immediately be a Navia teammate, which is good, a potential competent Navia teammate, and then on top of that, that again, like, crystallize is just have Geo, have Pyro, Electro, Hydro, Cryo, right? And then that would fulfill that ideal role of being a flex slot unit, and like her off-field DPS, on top of her defensive utility of generating crystallizes for a team, on top of that flex slot nature, would make her, I think, a much more useful unit. So yeah, the idea of just require a crystallize to get her second doll rather than construct would make her a lot better too. So yeah, to some degree, it's like, yeah, if more things, like I mentioned before, if more things in the game just counted as constructs, if Oz counted as constructs, you know, if just anything that persisted on field counted as a construct, then it would be much better. But most things in the game that persist off field don't count as constructs. So it's really just the specific things from specific Geo units that count as constructs, which I think is also pretty unintuitive, by the way. I don't think most players are going to immediately be able to differentiate between a construct and, you know, Oz on field or whatever. So, like,
oh yeah,
one's a rock and one's a bird.
Like a casual player is probably not going to really understand, or they're going to wonder why. Hey, you know, I've got this thing that I generated. You know, somebody who pulled Yai, for example. Is this not a construct?
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, there's MiHoYo with holding information, or I just think their tutorial system is a little jank.
On purpose. I don't know. My conspiracy theory, it's on purpose. I maintain that I think they want people to be more ignorant of the game on a mechanical level. But
yeah, constructs do need a lot of help.
Yes.
I can give people some pretty high-end examples of what it is constructs can do, if you'd like me to go through that.
Yes. Let me.
I prepared Mono Geo just to showcase what Mono Geo is, and I can get people up to date on what's changed with Ito, given the new characters that are available.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I just turned on camera. I don't even have a camera connected. Watch stream. Okay. This is going to take a second for me to get set up. And also, it's probably going to look very bad. But, alright, let's pop out this window.
Can we play Banker next time? I created another universe and founded paradise.
I created another universe and
Official.
founded
And the
paradise.
princess in different.
Okay. Discord null. Yeah, that's the window. Blam. Hey, look, it works. Okay. Here, let me
perfection.
make it a little bit bigger. Zoop. Oh, there we go. Okay. I think that's approximately correct. And good enough. There we go. It's a little bit caught off on the top, but it should show things properly. Let me mute my audio from Genshin. Mute the official. And then, now things are utterly silent and it feels weird. And there, not mute this. There we go. Okay. Whoops. Okay, there we go. Should be good, sir. Demonstrate.
Yep. Demonstrate. Okay, so do you feel like a domain or abyss or?
What are you trying to show? Construct things with Ito or
well,
with,
I can
just
show
Ito rotation things?
I can show Ito how Ito has changed from Mono Geo to what's currently happened in Fontaine. I can also show where the pinnacle of how constructs do damage. I think the best play, just because of the kind of damage, Abyss is probably good.
Oh, and it just froze for me. Nice. There we go.
And I kind of want to be. I kind of want to be an advocate for.
Oh, this is so bad. It just froze again.
In general.
Okay. Wonder. Do you want to try reducing your stream quality to like 720 and see if that streams a little bit better for me?
Sure.
Because like my internet seems to be struggling, or Discord is struggling. One of the two.
Yeah. So it's gonna have to. I'm gonna have to stop streaming and
That's fine.
Then grant access.
There we go. Okay. Hopefully it's slightly better now. Slightly fuzzier, but it'll be fine. Why are people talking about Shenhe's skin? Geo in general needs a lot
so
of
they were
help.
talking about albedo skins.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
Potential leak stuff. But realistically, Geo doesn't necessarily need help. It just needs more characters, more interesting ways to use Crystallize. Crystallize is really good. So this is what like Mono Geo gameplay is going to look like. The goal here is going to be to erect a pillar because I'm using Tenacity of the Millilith. That also gives Res Shred. I'm going to go on Goro and use him with Noblesse to get another attack boost and his burst, which is a Geo damage increase, a defense bonus increase, and a Geo crit damage increase. Swap to Albedo just to put down his flower and snapshot Goro's buff, and then wail away with Arataki Ito. It's really plain, it's really simple, but it can be kind of satisfying. Hit once, smack again, Ushi, so there it was 121k, and then these hit for, like, that. This is pretty good damage. Gonna go over here. Throw Ushi. So these guys are gonna clump up. They get distracted because Ushi is a taunt.
Coming through.
And this is like just a lot of AoE in general.
It froze. There we go.
Let's roll.
But like stuff kind of slows down because you're not making reactions. Enemies can have weaknesses to reactions.
Press the advantage.
And like this just feels slower than most things, albeit I'm doing decent damage for something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like Mono Geo for what it is. I like Ito, but I'm kind of tired of it, and I don't like how it.
Do you want to show your plunge Ito?
It doesn't amplify damage further. Well, I can. That's the pinnacle, in my opinion, of where Ito is now.
So if like you're pulling, which is to say, like if you're pulling 5 stars for
foodstuffs.
if you're pulling 5 stars, right, for Ito,
yeah,
it might make more sense to go the Farina Shanyun route rather than the Chiori route.
Well, especially because Farina gives you more team options outside
exactly.
of
Yes.
Geo,
yes.
and Shanyun gives you more. Like, although I have a Geo team option here, you've got your Gameng option, you've got various like quick bloom options, like you've got Yai plunge, and you've just got lots of fun in pulling for these characters. Whereas,
notably, in comparing, like if you're trying to imagine like Chiori in the previous Mono Geo team, right, the most likely one to replace is of course Albedo, and like it's not going to be wildly different. It probably would be a little bit better.
Who wants some of this? Attaboy!
So this is gonna do about 240k plunge.
He has C2 Cloud Retainer, to be clear. That's part of the big number you're seeing. But
the difference here is night and day.
oh yeah, it's not just C2. Yeah, it's definitely not just.
It's showtime! Let's roll!
I was doing 200 like 160k plunges before C2.
Yeah. And like that was a lot better. Yeah.
And that I didn't even have to worry or think about grouping like I did in the first run.
Yep. And that gives you more elemental coverage to try. Like Hydro is a useful element for dealing with, I don't know, Pyro shields. Not that Geo can't get through Pyro shields, but Hydro do be better. And
right.
Yeah.
Well, on that first side, a better team than Mono Geo that would clear faster is Zhongli, Kuki Shinobu,
yeah, because you can
Ito,
and those who share
either Beto or Fischl.
Yeah,
it's because you can tread through those.
Yeah.
Yep, you can tread through the shield, and the damage is not negligible from those units. Whatever damage Ito is missing from Goro, you get back from the virtue that, Fischl is doing electro charge reactions a lot.
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, she's triggering her A4 a lot.
Yes.
And Beto does really well in any floor that just has 2 units. As for, like, constructs, the best construct team, in my opinion, is going
some
to
kind of Farina microwave variation.
Yeah. So we're gonna do.
Someone just asked in the chat. This is Binge. He's a theory. I don't like the term theory crafter because I don't know. It has this tone of like, you got to do the optimal things is what theory crafters do. Like, no, theory crafters are just like, hey, I want to use this character. I know about the mechanics in the game. What can I do with character, right? That's all it is. It's not like what people have the conception of, gotta be perfectly optimal all the time. So anyways.
Right.
In the trying to just have fun with characters in different ways, I'd say Binge is a theory crafter, and he's active on my Discord server if you wanted to see him talk about more Mono Geo things.
So let me just figure out what I want to have work here. like, again, I took him off of equipment because didn't really need him to be anything, but I'm just going to throw him on the Exile set that I have Chung Yun on. Because... Am I missing? Oh, no, I should probably put him on... I'm having a hard time here because he doesn't really need a set.
Yeah.
But...
Because all the damage is going to be calculated from Zhongli, if I recall, from this.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to throw him on Husk. So, geo damage bonus stuff. I've got an attack goblet here. I've got too many Husk pieces. Like, if people can't tell, yes, I do main Geo.
The proof of you being a Geo fan.
So yeah, there's a really respectable 61-130 ratio. Got him on Fav. Zhongli's going to be on Tenacity. And Bennett here, we need to swap him. Actually, no, he's on the perfect set for this, Instructors. So I goofed and I lied. I'm going to go Noblesse.
Do you feel the difference from the AM for like defensive utility for Instructors? Is that why, or versus the attack?
So although this is going to be a construct build, what's going to happen is Zhongli is going to be doing a lot of vaporizes.
Oh, okay.
So that's where like a pretty good chunk of his damage is going to come from.
Mm-hmm. So again, if Chiori gave a Geo infusion, it could have let you do pure Geo Zhongli, but instead now we got to do Bennett shenanigans.
Yep. Now we've got to do Bennett. It's going to be more circle impact, but this is actually kind of cool.
Yeah, no, it's not cool. It's just like, hey, Chiori could have done something that was more interesting, right? It's kind of all the point.
Yeah.
My point is.
For Zhongli, we're going to throw him on attack, because he's going to be doing Pyro and Geo. Yep. He's going to be full attack.
I forgot you had that goblet. 80 EM, 80 EM, almost 30 CV goblet.
Yeah.
Keep weird artifacts. I had. Yep. Did you see my Yai video bench today? I got.
I did. I watched.
Did you see the EM circle that I randomly got? And then. Thanks. But yeah, I got that EM circle, and yes. I'm like, oh wait, I guess I should do full EM Yai. I had never tried hybrid Yai before. That worked surprisingly. Like, it worked really well. I might make a video on hybrid Yai.
So with this, I get to go Staff of Homa, and that's a really respectable.
Yep. Well,
crit rate, crit damage, EM.
Just playing the gotcha game on critting.
Right. And his attack, it's at 2k right now, even though he's running an EM.
Oh, wait, he's on Marsh.
Goblet.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah.
Yep, he's on Marsh SA. And so we're gonna try to do this setup. Now this setup does not work very well against bosses.
Yeah.
I just got to be clear about that. It works all right against PMA, but any boss that has like a pretty big body is this is going to be painful for.
Moves a lot. I should say. Well, I don't know. PMA moves, but you can control it more, I think, right? Kind of.
Well, you can set up around the PMA.
Yep.
And I'll show you what I mean by that, because all of this is stuff that you can set back up and take down and reapply, because you can essentially do it like once every 0.75 rotations because of how quickly everybody's burst comes back. The goal here is going to be I'm going to get Bennett's burst up, and then within the burst put down a Zhongli pillar and then climb the pillar in order to do Dendro main character's burst.
Dendro?
This is going to be weird.
You mean Geo?
I'm sorry. Yes, GMC.
Okay, just make sure.
I'm so used to referring to main character as Dendro.
Yeah.
All right, so here, Bennett burst, Zhongli. And there comes some of the issue. Burst. This. Meteor. Plunge. Now each of the constructs. If you didn't catch that, like this is hitting all of the constructs, and each one was doing about like
6,000.
10k damage.
Yeah, I think 6,000 was without Bennett, maybe, but yeah. So the notable thing is like you got to look at the number of not how big the number was, but the number of instances of damage that popped up every time the constructs pulsed.
Yeah.
This is trouble.
And I'm just goofing up here.
Yeah.
I'm not doing
easy to die on that.
This is order. Rise. Quick. Terra smash.
Yeah, nice 10k times like 6 when that happened all at once there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I will have
And he does a non-negligible amount of damage. This isn't very quick, but it's like it's what he's got. And this could be so much cooler.
to dust.
Could be so much cooler if there were just more options. And the setup time is long.
Yeah. Like Chiori could literally be an actual construct synergy unit that said, constructs deal, I don't know, ×2 damage, then you remove Bennett from that team, right? Or something like that. And then on top of that, hopefully they would just fix it in general of like, constructs can't be destroyed by a boss touching them, right? And stuff like that. So, I don't know, like, Chiori does not have construct synergy, basically, is I think what that demonstrates. Like, Chiori doesn't do anything for that team, right? And they intend her to have construct synergy, right? And I don't know. So
yeah, if you were to take, say, out of that team, which is all about the constructs and construct damage, if you take out Dendro main character, you take away 4 pulses from the constructs.
Yeah, notably their burst counts as like their burst counts as 2 or 3 or 4. It's, I don't know, a lot of constructs, and then they obviously have their skill that can count as a construct too.
Yep. So that's 5 total. The burst counts as 4, skill counts as 1.
Okay. Yep.
So you're missing out on all those constructs. If you remove Bennett, the constructs all do significantly less damage. If you remove Farina, you do even less damage because she's providing Zhongli with such a significant percentage damage increase. It's just not great.
There's a good comment in my chat. Yeah, her construct synergy doesn't make you want to play constructs, but instead makes you not want to play Chiori.
And
sadly
entirely
correct.
Fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's my little demonstration on like where Geo was.
And Chiori's puppets don't. Yeah, I don't think Chiori's puppets actually do the pulsing wave because they don't count for some godforsaken reason. So, from what we've heard,
they do not. They do not count as constructs.
Yeah, which is like cool, great, 10 out of 10. The construct synergy unit that is obviously not a construct synergy unit. Doesn't even do any constructs themselves.
But yeah, here's the one last.
Yep. Oh yeah, you can see the AOE going on here.
There you go. So now this is what happens when all of them are pulsing.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. Like that's actually neat.
Yeah, it is cool. Yep.
There's a place over in the chasm that actually has synergy with Zhongli's pillars. If you get his pillars to pulse on this one kind of rock there, you'll do like some ridiculous amount of damage per pulse, like 50k.
Weird. So
But
there
it's
is
just in
construct
the
synergy
chasm.
in the game. It's just a thing in the chasm.
Yeah, well, and it's on the
So-
chasm's maw. It's on the surface.
So what you're saying is there's
so you
a
might be able to kill a hilly troll with it.
perfect. So there's a rock that has better construct synergy than Chiori.
Yes, yes.
Oh god.
Oh my god.
Sorry for turning this
Oh,
into
that's too much.
sorry for turning this into a bashing Chiori stream, but it's just really hard to find ways where she like feels like she's uniquely relevant. And like if I was gonna get her, the only thing I'd really be able to do with her is just Bennett C6 shenanigans, which might not even work that well. And she, you know what? There's one important thing we didn't mention about her kit that I think is actually really cool about her kit that I just remembered. That I hope to see more in future characters. Although it kind of more makes me think about how jank this mechanic is in Genshin in general. So, Benj, without saying what it is, what do you think? So I maintain that this is the most important mechanic in Genshin. What do you think is the most important mechanic in Genshin?
The most important mechanic in Genshin.
Yeah, like game mechanic, as far as
Okay,
how you
so
do things in this
I'm gonna
game.
say it's gonna be really close for me between elemental reactions and the dodge button.
Okay, fair. What about switching characters?
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah,
Switching characters is essential. Yeah, for sure.
And it's jank in a lot of ways. I don't want to get too into all the things that make switching characters jank as F, but I think it's one of the Genshin's biggest problems, personally, is how jank switching characters can be when it's, in my opinion, the most important thing to make anything function in this game. Is like the whole game is, you know, on a mechanical level, elemental reactions. Dodging does not require switching characters, I guess, but most of what you do in this game that's interesting on a combat level, mechanical level, requires switching characters. And even if you don't care about the mechanics of the game, you switch characters a lot. And so, anyways, Chiori has a really interesting thing with her kit, wherein after you use her skill, I believe, she auto-switches to your next character. Which I believe is the next character like below her. So if she's like in the 4 slot, it switches to the 1. It would switch to Frina if Chiori was in the 4 slot in the stream here. And if Chiori was in Farina's slot in the top slot, then it would switch to the Traveler, right? That's I believe how it works. And it instantly swaps. Does not need to do any latency BS, and as far as I'm aware, it doesn't have to worry about any BS with like hitboxes preventing you from switching characters. It ignores the 1 second cooldown for switching characters. That is very cool. I want to see them do more inventive things with switching characters. It's one of the things I like. Candace, I really, really like a lot of things about Candace's kit as far as like the ideas they did. Obviously, Candace is not an amazing character. I acknowledge that as someone who really likes Candace. But I think there's one of the cool things they did with Candace is incentivizing switching characters, right? Candace applies Hydro and deals damage when you switch characters. And you have a level of control over it, over her application with that. You can't even get him over there.
I can't. I'm trying to find one of the rocks.
So yeah, Chiori's instant switch to another character, and notably she has like I think I forgot to mention her skill can teleport like a Ching, which is it's a movement ability. I'm not going to complain about it. It's a cool, minor, nice upside, but it's really not that important. But notably, she can do that switch. She can teleport in midair, and then she will switch to another, which is kind of cool. So you could theoretically, you could do weird shenanigans with that, potentially. But that's, I think, the coolest specific nuance of her kit. That is something that hasn't existed in any other character's kit before. And I hope that is some sign of to come of, like, I don't know, 5.0 characters that incentivize... Maybe that's the gimmick for 5.0, right? Maybe the gimmick for 5.0 is when you switch characters, something happens. But I would hope if they are going to make that the gimmick of 5.0 patches, good God, do I hope they fix some things with switching characters. Because it's kind of jank sometimes. So, was that the rock over there, and you just couldn't get an enemy near it?
That was one of the rocks.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
I think that there's one up here. Now that yeah. Okay. So, over here there's 3 of them. There should be like a Vishap or something around here. It's been so long, and Chasm is one of my favorite places. But I haven't had a need to go here in so long. They're basically the puzzle rocks.
Yeah, I know. I think I know what you're talking about. But there's this one. It's just one specific one. That first is it because there's just a ton of rocks around it. That allows it, or what is it?
Well, no, the one specific one, the one that does just like a massive chain reaction, is really cool because it's one of the bigger puzzles here in the chasm. But specifically, any of these rocks, if you break them with Zhongli's pillar, the pulse wave that comes out of them is enormous.
Yeah, I recall them.
You did just remind me though that there is the one like super large one, and enemies do spawn around it.
Yeah, if we can find one that shows the rocks. Oh yeah. We just gotta show that rocks are better than Chiori.
I can tell I'm not playing Jianyan because, well, I'm running out of stamina.
Yeah, man.
This isn't super fast.
She's never leaving my overworld party, man. Like, she's a healer, has very, very, very heavy exploration utility. Like, her ability to just traverse normal landscape on top of traversing vertical is so freaking good.
It's not this one, no.
I think it's the first one you gotta hit. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, okay,
that
so
one.
check out this treasure hoarder. And we're just gonna...
Quake!
What? That wasn't close enough? God dang it, game.
There we go. Bam!
There we go. There's the construct synergy we needed.
And
see, imagine if Chiori did that. Imagine if Chiori did that.
Yep,
though. Instantly
there's the
fun,
construct synergy.
instantly fun character, right? That's the Chiori we needed. A rock. Good work, man.
Yep. So
you're
yeah,
not scared about getting banned because you're
not much
talking about
happening
leaks
here.
with your UID out? It's not illegal for me to talk about leaks. I'm not leaking. I'm talking about leaks. I've literally shown nothing about leaks in this video. I've just talked about things. I've done this before,
I
and
showed
it's not
illegal use
yeah.
of geomechanics.
Yeah, they don't like you. They don't like you sharing. Yeah, they don't like you sharing imagery of leaks. But
Plunge Ito.
Yeah, they don't like you sharing imagery of anything notably. But just talking about things is perfectly fine. I've actually had to fight with other Hoyo creators. Like, I'm a Hoyo creator, technically. I've had to fight with other Hoyo creators about, like, talking about leaks, because, like, a lot of them are just, like, they just piss their pants at trying to say anything that, like, might get them on a bad side with Hoyoverse. But it's like, no. You actually, like, you can, like, actually be a little bit, like, Hoyoverse, from me working with them, I can tell you, is more open than I think, like, more open to creators just voicing their thoughts than you might actually think. And it's just creators convincing themselves to a very significant degree, because they're scared of losing the money from Hoyoverse, that they're just not even gonna, like, dare encroach anything that they feel like might risk them losing money from Hoyoverse. Which is because of the fact that, you know, they don't understand where the line is for leaks. When you're talking about leaks, they're just going to not talk about leaks at all, right? Which is to say, I'm sorry, but they're lazy. They're too lazy to learn and actually probably talk about things that might benefit the community, but you know, whatever. Sorry. I tried not to bash other creators. I'm not going to name any names. but yeah. So, I am a Hoyo creator. I acknowledge I get paid a not insignificant amount of money from Hoyoverse. Not as much as a lot of creators do, by the way. I know that, oh boy, a lot of Genshin creators paid a lot of money from Hoyoverse. But, you know, a good chunk of my money is indirect, that I get from making Genshin videos, is indirectly from Hoyoverse. So, and that's not
They
just
sponsor
ad
you,
revenue.
which is cool.
They don't sponsor me. I'm partnered with Yomiholic, who gives me additional revenue per like view I get on my videos every month. But they are paid by Hoyoverse, right? So they're a partner company paid by Hoyoverse to partner with creators like me. And like there are certain things I'm not supposed to say or talk about, but for the most part, like they actually recently reached out with the drama that happened and was like, hey, you know, we know that creators are all like biting at each other's faces. We just want to say like, we don't advise jumping in on this drama, but like, we're not going to prevent you from speaking your mind for what it's worth, right? Like, I don't know. That's like my example. I'd say of like Hoyoverse is not as, you know, authoritarian as some people have the impression of when it comes to like controlling what creators are saying. And you just gotta be smart and walk the line if you do want to, you know, be like I am and getting some money from them without pissing them off too much. I have been worried about the fact that I am quite critical of them sometimes, and the fact, and I acknowledge like I have made some videos where I'm like, this might lose me my partnership, but it hasn't, right? So I don't know. Anyways. Best thing about Chiori is how skippable she is. Honestly, yeah. Are you gonna show anything else? Otherwise, I'm gonna go back to my stream. Actually, I just kind of rambled.
Oh no, you can go back to your stream. Cool. I've got nothing. Again, there aren't enough characters to really showcase Geo stuff.
Yes,
there just aren't.
I do. Oh, I'm gonna turn on my audio again. Yeah, I don't know. Like, Geo could use more options to being able to do more creative things, right? And Chiori is not more options for Geo, not to any meaningful, real degree. I'm actually going to log on to
side grades are not
account.
more options.
Yes, exactly. So, anyway, let me close this pop-out window here. But yeah, Sylveon jokingly mentioned in my chat about, you know, the best thing about Chiori is how skippable she is. Honestly, there is like value. I do think there is like there is some degree of intention behind them, you know, making a patch like, and making a character like Cloud Retainer that is like a more desirable character to more people potentially. And then I do feel that slight pattern of they purposely like have someone a character they try to push and sell a lot more, and then they release a character they really aren't concerned about selling as much, right? It is kind of my impression. And on a player level, there is value to that because of the fact that it lets you, we don't want to be in a situation, right, where it's like the worst situation you could be in with a gacha game as far as like your resources go, whether you spend money in the game or not, is like you don't want to be wanting every single character they're running on a banner, right? You gotta kind of like draw the line somewhere in how you pull for characters to be healthy. So it is fine that there are characters. My point is, it's fine that there's characters they release that aren't for you, right? Like, there's not really any characters in this game right now that I don't have that I really feel like I'm going to purposely pull for. Like, I don't plan to pull for Navia. I can get plenty of value just playing her on my brother's account. And like, she's an on-build. I don't plan to pull for Risley, Linny. Mika's the only 4-star don't exist, and it's Mika. Aetham, I don't plan to get. Wander, Sino, no. Ayato, no. Ito, no. Yoimiya, Ayaka, Hutao, no. Eula, Albedo, Zhongli, Tarteg, Venti, Klee. None of these units I plan to pull for. Shenhe is, I think, the only 5-star I think I do plan to pull for, even though I don't even use Cryo units that often. I want her for shenanigans and for buffing Charlotte. But that's just a me thing. It's not. So, like, having reasons to skip characters is good for the purposes of just playing this game, playing gacha games in general healthily, right? If every unit was a unit you wanted to pull for, that kind of sucks because you just get burned out and feeling like you never have enough resources to get the things you want, right? So there is genuine upside to underwhelming units in that, hey, you get a little bit of a break of not having to be gambling constantly. What a world. So, anyways, yeah. Hopefully Chiori is not a sign to come of what Geo is going to be like. It's kind of, I think, my closing thoughts on her. She has some interesting things, like the switching mechanic and whatnot, but there's some baseline ideas there that I think weren't necessarily bad, but the whole thing comes together in a character that I think is one of the most boring characters that I think has ever released, and that's coming from someone who likes off-field units. So, and yeah. Anyways, let me switch to polearms only, and that's basically the stream. It's gonna be a little bit of a shorter one, I think. But my excuse is, well, I have no excuse. My excuse is that YouTube likes condensed videos that don't get too off-topic. So I'm gonna go finish polearms only things, and that's probably gonna be the stream. I do plan on streaming more on Twitch for anyone that might be leaving the stream right now, since I don't really have any more Chiori thoughts. Did I close Discord? No, Binge is still here. Okay, I wasn't sure. You didn't talk.
I'm still here.
So, yeah, anyways, I'm going to stream on Twitch more. I streamed earlier this week for, like, Star Rail version 2.0 things, so if you wanted to catch my thoughts, I probably will start streaming, like, when I don't have YouTube, I basically try to do streams now as, like, their ideas, like, hey, this stream is talking about Chiori, right? That's an idea. Whereas, like, if I'm in the mood to just stream doing dailies on Genshin, I'll probably do that on Twitch. It's possible I might make a second YouTube channel for that instead, depending on how Twitch goes. We'll see. But basically, at least my main YouTube channel, the one you're watching right now, I plan to keep any, whether it be a stream or a edited video, try to keep that as its own, like, cohesive idea for the most part. Streams obviously have very high chances for me to get rambly and a little bit off topic. It's just how streams be. But try to keep it more focused is the general idea, at least for the majority of the content of it, which I think I've been successful at for the stream, right? I've talked about mostly just Chiori for like an hour and a half. I'm gonna go finish up polearms only things dailies quick, and that'll probably be it, unless I get distracted by something else, which often happens. But also, it's my mom's birthday today, and I need to call my mom and talk to her. So, you know, call your mom on her birthday at the very least is what I recommend. Alright, let's bring up a turtle real quick. Turtle. And I'll log out here.
It was a pleasure as always, man.
Likewise.
Always love a good opportunity to talk about Geo. I thought that what points we hadn't talked about previously regarding Chiori, like you basically hit the nail on the head. You know, as time passes, we all kind of, any of us who are thinking about, you know, prospective units to be or units that are out, just get more time to think about, oh, well, you know, I could put them in this situation or that situation. But it's looking more and more like her place is pretty solidified. For people who are actively interested in pulling for Chiori because they want to make things more Chiori oriented. I hate to say this, the cons are really going to open up options for her to be fun.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at Geo and Ito and other kinds of hyper carries, looking at Chiori as though she's gonna like transform the account, nowhere near as much as say Farina. And before the end of, you know, the 4X patches, she should get another rerun. So use your primos wisely, folks. It was great being on again.
Thanks for joining, Binge. It was nice having a geo-focused perspective. As someone who hasn't barely touched them. So.
Alright, later.
See ya. Alright. Thank you, Binge, for joining. I'm glad he was available. I just messaged him literally at the start of the stream. I was like, you know what, it might be a good idea to have Binge join, and thankfully he was available. So it's very nice of him to take some time to join. I think someone just mentioned, can I do a character review on Victor in the chat? What do you mean by character review? Like review? I mean, that's kind of what this stream was. And again, unless like I'm probably not going to do another video on Chiori unless my takes and conclusions about her are horribly off, which I doubt they will be unless she gets major changes. So like this video was a character review, and I don't know, like I have considered in the past doing reviews on, and if you're talking about like individual, like my character build reviews, that's a different thing. But if you're talking about just like trying to objectively review characters and like talk about them in like why my latency, good lord, and talk about them in general for like how I recommend them to people and whatever, and my thoughts on characters. I have considered doing like more short form content before, but it's actually like really hard to condense down what a character is in short form content, in my opinion. I have yet to see anyone that I feel like does a really, really good job at it. That's not just this character's skill does electro from off field, and then this character's burst does in pyro and it does some explodey woadies. Like, I'm sorry, that's like the tier of short form content I've seen, and that's to say there might be a niche to fill for that, but it's also like weirdly hard to try to, if I like envision trying to do short form content. And then as far as like long form content for guides, I'm sorry, just watch the Jeff. He's gonna do a better job than I can at doing like a condensed but fairly expansive. He's not perfect. I oftentimes very much critique him on my Discord server, and like critique the Jeff's takes on characters, but yeah, it's just it's weird basically. So it's harder to judge characters than you might expect on a proper level, and try to like account for other people's views rather than just my own kind of thing. But if you go too far into like just the objective like comparison, you get too far into the it's just we're measuring characters' damage compared to other characters, and I think there's a lot more to characters in Genshin because it's such a context-heavy game than just like how characters' damage is. That's something I mentioned in my video about Yai today. Yai is a character, like, if you compare her to Neuvillette, she's not as strong of a character as Neuvillette, but for me, she is a much, much better character than Neuvillette, and that's a complicated thing to get across. So, I don't know. By the way, on Poems Only here, I have a lot of lag, and I can't even do anything, but outside of that, I have actually been testing Raiden on a traditional build. I'm using the catch, if you didn't notice, with Raiden on a traditional build, because I wanted to compare the catch on a traditional build, right? Because I actually got this timepiece from Strongbox, so I finally have actually a good attack percent timepiece, and so I compared a very good catch build on Raiden. She has extra crit damage from this domain. She does not normally have this much crit damage. But this is a very good catch build I would describe on Raiden, and I would say it's just, with Chevreuse specifically, it's equivalent or situationally worse than my Overload build with Staff of Scarlet Sands. The benefit of this, though, is that if I'm using the fact that it is relatively equivalent, it means I can do something like use this catch build on Raiden while giving Staff of Scarlet Sands, which I only have one of, to Rosaria if I want to do like Rosaria Melt at the same time, right? So that's a good thing, but realistically it's like ultimately not that different, and I prefer the hybrid build more than the traditional build for its versatility in more teams with Raiden. But I've specifically just been testing, since this is a weird dual DPS team where, you know, I have two characters that want a little bit of field time, and both these characters don't take an insignificant amount of field time, kind of trying to balance them. So I think specifically in the context of using, sure, we'll try it, using Toma instead of Xiangling in this team, which the reason to do that is, again, to free up Xiangling for a different team. Xiangling's a very useful character in Poems Only, and I like to potentially free her for like that Rosaria Melt team I mentioned again, right? Like Rosaria Melt needs Xiangling. That's there's no question. And then I use Toma in this team instead, which is obviously a downgrade for damage output, but the idea is to try to balance and like use Hu Tao as the primary damage dealer with 4-piece Martial Say Hunters, which I'm able to keep consistent crit rate stacks on thanks to Chevreuse. And then using Raiden as like a short, like not using her full burst duration, but just like short field duration to try to use her output a little bit of damage. and I think the balance is pretty good. And in that specific context, I think the traditional build is a bit better than the overload build, but not still than the hybrid build, but still not completely, because the hybrid build still is better for like off-field damage from Raiden. So, anyways. Oh my god, the lag. Okay, well, I was gonna do the combat event on this stream, but my internet is clearly not behaving today. I'm not gonna bother doing the combat event on stream with this. That's all I'm gonna say. So, like situations like this thing would already be dead now if I was on the hybrid build, because it just spreads out the damage from Raiden a little bit more. Like, she can get like 15k, 17k overloads on her hybrid build versus, you know, like 5 to 7,000, and that just is a damage spread that I think makes a hybrid build feel better with Chevreuse, even with my Raiden constellations. Honestly, the Raiden constellations I think make more sense to diversify her damage, because she's doing so much damage anyways. It's just like, okay, may as well spread out the damage a little bit and sacrifice a little bit of burst damage, since I'm always doing big burst damage anyways. But anyways, can I review your A build? Post it in Victor if you're not on Discord. Sorry, but like you can post it in the build help or something of my Discord server, and I can take a look at it after the stream. The reason I don't really enjoy reviewing specific characters anymore is because, like, I've been trying to maintain my perspective of like characters being useful in a diverse number of ways, and therefore judging a person's build and being like, you don't have enough ER, for example, is, I think, not very productive to talk about, because it just depends. right. Like, I'm talking about the nuance of hybrid Raiden. So who am I to judge your Raiden for, you know, having a slightly weird amount of ER when I don't know the exact teams, and like, I don't know. So I don't think it's valueless, but point is, if I'm gonna do a reviewing character stream of people, I'm probably gonna do a dedicated stream for it. I should try to do that more. That's something that is just like a simple dedicated stream concept that I could do if I I'll lock that. If I wasn't busy on weekends, usually I would probably try to make one of my weekend streams usually be reviewing people's character streams. So I don't know, maybe I will in the future more, but for now, if you want, you can post it in build help with my Discord and be like, here's my Raiden build, and you can at me, it'll be fine. And you can at me at Saluna, here's my Raiden build, and I can put some baseline thoughts on it or whatever. But I don't want to go super in depth on like actually properly reviewing people's characters because of the contextual nature of the game, and they tend to get a bit samey as well. Yes, I agree. So don't you have an ER problem without Raiden and Bennett on Xiangling team? No, I find about 200 ER to be perfectly fine. So don't know what to tell you other than like it's fine. But yeah, I'll probably go back to the hybrid build on Raiden. It's kind of my point. One thing I want to test though more actually is trying other weapons that aren't Staff of Scarlet Sands on a hybrid build on Raiden. So whether that be Missive Wind Spear or Dragon's Bane, even potentially, right? Like if we have consistent pyro application, Dragon's Bane is potentially very good. But I don't think I generally have consistent enough pyro application if I'm not using Xiangling with Raiden, so I don't know how good Dragon's Bane might be. But something like Missive Wind Spear or the new Battle Pass weapon might be good enough. I still haven't leveled up the new Battle Pass weapon because... where is it? This is a really dumb reason. But if I... oh, I have a bunch of them now. Oh, wait, no, not that. That wasn't the problem. Yeah, I have these. Sorry, that wasn't the problem. I think I actually farmed all of these, and then when I went to farm the material... also, why do you use these? That's really annoying. When I went to farm the material, I was like, hey, click on this, navigate. Target position has not been unlocked in your map. And I was like, what? Why? Why can't I farm these, game? That's because the stupid freaking game navigates only to them here. Like, they exist over here, so I just had to get off my butt and like use the interactive map instead of the in-game thing. But like, now I'm stubborn and I refuse to go to this area. just to spite the game for the fact that it's trying to force me to farm for that weapon. So anyways, point is, I gotta try different weapons with Hybrid Raiden a little bit more to see how good different ones can be. And I don't know, I still kind of want to get R5 of this weapon, but it's like getting R5, buying 4 more battle passes just for R5 of that weapon on Polearms only is so silly. Like, it's just very excessive. I do not need any of the resources from the battle pass. At the state Polearms only is in, I need none of the resources from the battle pass at all. I don't need a single one of them. The only reason to buy it, I'd be paying $10 just for the weapon, and that's, I don't like, so I don't know. Anyways, the point is I gotta play around with Hybrid Raiden options a little bit more. So, Raiden reviews are really funny when my build gets slapped in there compared to everyone else's, so yeah. Yeah, I don't know, like, a lot of guides recommend a lot of ER on Raiden, but the fact of the matter is, if she gets her burst back consistently, you don't need more ER than she has. It's just that she has a lot of stuff in her kit, both with like 4-piece emblem and I think her passive, right, that gives her damage bonus based on her energy recharge, that it makes sense to overcap on energy recharge to make sure that, you know, when you like kill an enemy faster, for example, let's say if you use your burst on an enemy that has 30% health left, and you know it basically dies in the initial hit of Raiden's burst, you need to be able to do additional hits on Raiden's burst to be able to get the energy refund, right? And that's wherein having more energy recharge is potentially really important, because oftentimes you do have that situation where her front-loaded damage kills something and then you can't get the energy back, or you don't get as much energy back, right? And you want to make sure you always have Raiden's burst up. But that's actually part of the benefit of Hybrid Raiden, is like you have less need to do that because you're diversifying your damage sources across more than just her front-loaded burst hits, right? And because you're diversifying it not just across like her skill damage from triggering overloads or aggravates from off-field, but also, or on-field, but also diversifying it by putting more of her damage in the reactions she's triggering from like doing normal and charge attacks. Right? That's why I like Hybrid Raiden, is diversifying her damage makes Raiden feel a lot more consistent and smooth to play than, in my experience, than a traditional Raiden build usually does. But even a traditional Raiden build, you can get away with like lower ER than I think a lot of people potentially recommend. Yeah. So yeah, this is like probably on the low end, but yeah, this team, even without a second Electro unit, I in my testing, which is mostly been in this domain that you just saw, it pretty consistently she gets her ER back, or her energy back, by the time I switch back to her second rotation. Right. Usually, like, I would finish doing Raiden burst things, and then she'd have probably, she has a 90 burst cost. She'd have I'd say 70 out of 90 energy, and then she gets the remaining 20 energy from like the energy particles that generate from me doing, you know, Chevreuse and Chungling a little bit off field, and Raiden's skill by the time I switch to Raiden's burst again. So yeah, Chevreuse need cons to be good? No. I made a whole bunch of videos about Chevreuse and a whole bunch of streams about Chevreuse. I was very bullish on how good she would be without C6. I have C6 on Polearms only. I do not have C6 on my main account. Yeah, I think Chevreuse is a very, very good character. The fact that she can replace Xingqiu in certain teams or replace Kazuha in certain contexts, and the team can still feel very good. On top of the fact that she does incentivize like actually thinking about how what overload is doing for you, I think is very, very good. I think she's a very competent C0 4-star, and that's a big freaking surprise. And I think her constellations give her like nice value, and like C2 gives her an additional overload triggering. The damage itself isn't that relevant, but like an additional overload is potentially. And then like C1 gives energy refunding to, like, instead of them doing the classic, oh, need a constellation to reduce a 4-star character's energy to be reasonable. Instead, they just made the character like have reasonable energy costs, and then they gave her a constellation that refunded energy to other characters. Like, that's super cool. And by the way, a big part of the reason I think they did this was to make it so that Xiangling felt better with Chevreuse when you're not using Bennett. I think they very much designed Chevreuse in many ways to be a Bennett replacement, so you don't feel the need to use Bennett. I, generally speaking, don't actually like using Bennett with Chevreuse teams. It's not bad. You can do it. But I much prefer Xiangling, and like a Xiangling without Bennett, which is quite rare with Chevreuse. And I think her C1 helps with that, and I think that's kind of the intention, but it's not necessary. And particularly with her on a fab build, right? You get like 4 elemental particles and then a fab proc relatively easily with her, and then funnel those particles to Xiangling, you'll be fine. I still like overcapping my ER on Xiangling, to be clear. Like there's a reason I have this weapon on her. I don't want to touch my Xiangling build, and I want her always to get her burst back no matter what. So like this team does not need Xiangling to have 250 ER, but I do it anyways because I don't want to worry about it. This weapon is Xiangling's signature weapon forever and always to be. Anyways, so yeah, Chevreuse is very functional at C0. I used her a lot at C0, and then I decided to go for more constellations on my main account just because I was really, really enjoying her, and I wanted her C4 to have more fun with her. Her C4 is what makes her start to make sense to like spec into like her own crit based damage, but it still doesn't necessarily make sense depending on the team because you don't necessarily want to spend the extra field time that is required to get the damage out of her C4. And their C6 is obviously just good for damage increase, but I think her C6 is a little bit overrated because this only benefits your on-field character, unless you do something like wait for healing to happen on Xiangling to snapshot the damage bonus or whatever. But like, it's only the on-field unit, so. And it's only the on-field unit, and notably, you have to still wait for it for the on-field unit, right? So in cases like Raiden, who deals front-loaded damage, again, this is actually a benefit of like hybrid Raiden with Chevreuse is a bit better to diversify, to spread out her damage into her non-initial hit of her burst with C6 Chevreuse, because it takes time for Chevreuse's damage bonus to build up with C6 Chevreuse. So, anyways, so if you just like do these 3 characters things and then swap to Raiden, right? Raiden will probably get like 1 healing tick. If I just swap to her, immediately use her burst, like in the burst animation window, I'd probably get like maybe 1 healing tick, which means I get 20% damage bonus from her C6, which is not that much. If I want to get the full damage bonus to maximize Raiden's burst damage, then I need to like wait for like 4 seconds on field with Raiden, not doing much. Just to be able to get that value from her C6. So I think her C6 is a little bit overrated, but it depends on the context of who you're using Chevreuse with. Chevreuse is a very functional character at C0, and like I was bullish on her, much more bullish than the likes of Zajef was before she released, and then after she released, I had an even more positive reaction to her. Like I was very optimistic about her, and she exceeded my expectations at C0. So this is one of my favorite characters in the game. I'm not kidding. So, anyways, but keep in mind I also say that as like a Xingqiu hater. So so a character that replaces Xingqiu in like, let's say traditional Raiden teams, where she normally would have made, or where you'd use Xingqiu instead. A character that replaces Xingqiu and gives me less reason to use Xingqiu ever. Fantastic. And slightly a joke. Xingqiu is obviously still a very good character. That's actually something that's valuable about her, though, right? If like you wanted to do some Raiden, team variations, now you can use Chevreuse C0 instead of Xingqiu, and that frees up Xingqiu for another team, which is very valuable. So yeah, and I think she's way, 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 way better for Overworld than someone like Xingqiu. So yeah. Do I still use the Vision Pro to play Genshin? I mean, I have a little bit, but not much. The fact of the matter is, like, basically what I said in the Vision Pro video. They would have to... Did I use all my resin? They would have to... I did, okay. Release, like, a native... Okay, 1 or 2 things has to happen. Either they had to release a native version of Genshin that actually runs on the Vision Pro, which they could just do at any time if they felt like it, and it would just be the iPad app, right? And then I would actually probably want to play in Genshin a little bit more. in the Vision Pro, but the alternative is streaming applications that directly stream from my PC here to the Vision Pro could release, but also my internet. I would need to get like my Wi-Fi router is not very good. It's a relatively cheapy one, so I'd probably have issues wirelessly streaming with like latency and whatever. But if I can cut out the having to go from PC to Mac to wireless display connection to Vision Pro, which doesn't even send audio over, if I could cut out that chain, then I think it would work properly. But right now it's not compelling enough for me to actually want to do it, versus just jumping on my computer, right? It is probably what I would describe the general experience as, but it's something that like I can tell I would actually prefer playing it on the Vision Pro in the future once some number of criteria are met, right? But it's not quite there. So anyways, engulfing is also just very good on Shenhe. Yeah, engulfing is better than Shenhe's signature weapon in my opinion. for the normal things that you use Shenhe for, engulfing is better than Calamity Queller. But anyways, oh, you know what? We should talk quick since this is a leaky video. Anyways, I want to talk about some of the Arlecchino things related to polearms only. I'm not gonna do dailies or anything, by the way, because I'm gonna do off camera when I'm not streaming. My internet will probably be fine to do this event, but Arlecchino seems like, I'm not gonna say anything concrete about her, because one thing I can say for certain, like if you looked at like the leaks of Chiori before her beta started, they were all over the place as far as what Chiori was gonna be, and like none of them were correct. So Arlecchino, though, is currently rumored to be like an overload incentivized on-field DPS, and we keep on getting rumors notably that she seems to be an on-fielder. And all I can say right now, and we'll keep this short, is that Hu Tao is a very good pyro on-fielder. She's a good pyro on-fielder that works with Chevreuse, who is an overload incentivized DPS, and like on polearms only, and this is honestly, it applies to normal accounts too, but on polearms only especially, the struggle with like potential overload teams is not having Fischl, right? So like if I have an on-field, like if I'm doing on-field, Hu Tao overload with Chevreuse, the best teammate while I'm doing this with Hu Tao is going to not be Raiden, it would be Fischl. And Fischl would just be a better off-field DPS, right? But obviously it's polearms only, so Raiden is my only off-field electro choice, and that's fine. I've been able to make that work uniquely and be able to try to like get a balance for that, as I was talking about earlier. But when it comes to the idea of Arlecchino being an on-field pyro unit, what the heck does she have to look like for an on-field unit for me to replace Hu Tao with her, for example? And like, what is the value of that then? Like it frees up Hu Tao for the other side of Abyss if I want to use Hu Tao somewhere else, but like, I don't know, man. Like, the point is, for polearms only, Arlecchino probably being an on-fielder is quite underwhelming, is what I would describe it as. But we'll see what she's like. I look forward to. She's rumored to be a polearm, by the way, and it's possible that could be wrong too. So, but assuming she is a polearm, I look forward to at least having a new 5-star polearm, because the last new 5-star polearm that polearms only got was, I believe, Sino. So, at the very least, yeah, it was Sino. To be clear, Chevreuse is a 5-star in my heart. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. She's probably going to be better than Sino, realistically. And as long as she's fun, I don't really care at the end of the day, right? As long as she's fun, and she's a new thing that I can have fun making some videos on and enjoy playing as an option, that's a good thing at the end of the day. It's just, as far as utility goes, I don't think another pyro on-fielder is what polearms only needed, to say the least. And I don't think it's what the game needed in general. I don't think the game needed more pyro on-fielders necessarily. We're very lacking in competent off-field pyro options. So as far as like, hey, Arlecchino is a DPS unit that synergizes with Overload in some way. That's cool. That's a cool idea on paper. The devil's in the details how they implement it. But an off-field unit, like one of the things I feel the most with Chevreuse, both on my main account and this account, is how much Xiangling is necessary and feels necessary. not 100% necessary. I've been using Chevreuse on polearms only with Toma instead of Xiangling, like I mentioned, but the team's performance is very different with and without Xiangling, right? And point is, like, off-field pyro is important to Chevreuse overload teams, right? So Arlecchino is, if she's not an off-fielder, is not replacing Xiangling potentially, which would be a big boon. Like, that would be an insane boon to this team if Arlecchino was an off-fielder in even some relatively minor form. Like, I'm talking Dia level off-field pyro. Well, actually, no, it'd have to be better than Dia level. That's incorrect. It'd have to be better than Toma. But, like, it's some kind of incentivization in off-field damage performance, and by being off-field, replacing Xiangling on polearms only would free up Xiangling to be consistently used in other teams, and she's useful in a million different teams on polearms only, and in general that's the same thing in normal accounts, right? So like her being an off-field pyro option would enable more off-field pyro options elsewhere on a normal account or this account, just by nature of freeing up Xiangling for a different team. And it seems like she's not going to be an off-fielder, so you get the point. I think point is she's probably an on-fielder, and that disappoints me. But it doesn't mean she won't be fun necessarily, and I'll look forward to her, to trying her out regardless. So we'll see. We'll see. And I would not be surprised if all of those rumors about her were basically completely off base, because that's what happened with Chiori. So yeah, we'll see. Oh, by the way, as far as Hu Tao goes, oh my god, the leg. I think earlier this week I'm still farming Martial Say Hunters, even though like my build is very, very good on her. My 4-piece Martial Say Hunters build. I got this flower, which is a much higher stat value flower than my existing one, right? This only has 5 lines of stat value for a mono Pyro Hu Tao. The EM doesn't do anything, right? And if I switch to this, the attack percent, remember she's an attack scaler, so the attack percent does do more than you might think. She overcaps crit rate a little bit, which you could argue is maybe better. But, you know, it doesn't really necessarily it's not that much of an improvement. I think it is minorly better, but because of the fact that this crit ratio looks so good, like 275% crit damage looks so nice. The notable thing, though, is that this being crit rate heavy means that now I'm kind of trying to chase, like I have this that has more crit rate than this piece. Now I'm trying to chase getting an HP timepiece or a good crit rate, a good crit damage circlet. Because my dream for a Martial Say Hunters build on Hu Tao, on polearms only, is to get to 300 crit damage with 90% crit rate after you get stacks up. So that would be, I think, 54% crit rate out of baseline here. And that would require doing a crit damage circlet, most likely, and then require a timepiece like this. That would be either a timepiece or a crit damage circlet that has very heavy crit rate subsets, basically. A circlet that has very heavy crit rate substats, or a timepiece of similar quality to this one, which is an insanely good one, that enables me to use an off piece that has heavy crit rate. So, you know, this tier of one, like with 14% crit rate, right? So, we'll see what happens. I don't find it likely I'll be able to do that anytime soon, but I don't have much else to farm for in this account, so I do it anyways. Why not? It's just for the funsies. I really don't need to, though. Like, this Hu Tao build is already ridiculously good. Is Akasha linked to Hoyo? No, it's not. They link to Enka.network for the Enka.network is just a tool. Enka.network might have some authentication through Hoyoverse just to be able to look up people's UIDs or something, or they might have just programmed their own thing. I am not sure. But Enka is what, you know, you put in your UID, it looks up your profile characters, and then all that Akasha does is look at your artifacts and then gives you data based on the artifacts you use compared to other people's artifacts. Akasha is just a tool for comparing your artifact quality to other people. I knew from the moment that Akasha started to be used in the community that a lot of people would just use it as like, aha, I have a top 1% build, and like that's what they would chase. That's the wrong way to use it, in my opinion. In my opinion, you should use Akasha just as a measure of like seeing a neutral context for how other people are building their characters. So I think the most useful thing about Akasha is how it shows you how more stats than crit are relevant on builds. Like crit is usually the most valuable stat on talent-based damage builds, but the difference maker between one build or another, if you look at them in Akasha, is usually down to substats more than it is crit. Substats that aren't crit, like having a feather that has 3 extra attack percent rolls versus a feather that does, or sorry, a flower that does not have any attack percent, right? Like these are the same crit value. About this is a 35 crit value. This is a little bit less crit value, but these are about the same crit value, like the same number of crit rolls. But this has 3 more lines of attack percent, which makes this a much higher stat value piece. And this could be the differentiator on something like Akasha that makes this piece better than this piece. That's what Akasha is useful for, is illustrating that, in my opinion. But like, you shouldn't compare your builds like in Akasha to other people that like your specific builds, because all those like top percent builds, I guarantee you, the vast majority of them are either people that have played the game for a long time. Because it's just a statistic inevitability. The more you farm for artifacts, the more likely it is you're going to get the rare the rare substance on your artifacts, right? And notably, that means the more that people do this, right? The more that people do this, which you can do this 6 times per day, and like triple the amount of functional resin that you get compared to someone else, which is triple the amount of potential artifacts. And the point is, if someone resin refreshes to farm artifacts, they're like an account that has existed for like 2 years, like mine has, but has resin refreshed on a vast majority of days compared to mine, just to be able to farm extra artifacts, is functionally years ahead in artifact quality, like average artifact quality, than my account is. And that's how you get the top 1% builds most of the time. The only way a normal account can beat those accounts that are resin refreshing or that are very, very old accounts is by hyper investing in one specific domain, and like only like I only farm emblem for Raiden, and then you might be able to get a top 1% build. But even then, like, it's unlikely. The easiest way to get a top 1% build in Akasha is by farming the domains that nobody farms. So like I don't know if she still is top 1%, but I had a top 1% Dia for a while at least. The reason being is just because I'm insane, and on my main account I spent like 4 months farming this stupid artifact set for Dia, and not because like I actually like it, like not because it's really that much better than Emblem to be worthwhile, but because I wanted it for a meme build for a video idea. The video did very well, which was nice. It was the Candace and Dia team. It was a team that spec'd into Dia's elemental skill damage, on top of still having her burst damage, right? So this was actually a perfect set for my meme build. But it's not actually worth farming for, but that accidentally resulted in me getting a top 1% Dia build. I think I have a screenshot somewhere on my computer that showed Dia being in place number 69 out of like 7,000. But the only reason I was able to like get that high in that leaderboard was because nobody actually farms that much for Dia. So that's how you actually get 1% builds, is build the characters that nobody actually uses, and hyper invest in the characters no one uses. But if you want to like try to get a top 1% Raiden, it's way harder to get a top 1% Raiden than it is to get a top 1% Dia. So anyways, and regardless, like, it doesn't actually make any sense. Like, the actual performance you have in game of how these characters function in top 1% versus top 5% is nothing. Like, it's basically nothing. You're gonna notice 2 seconds faster in your Abyss clear. Like, and to be clear, if that's what motivates you to continue playing, you know, you do whatever you want that motivates you to continue playing. That's what you get enjoyment out of. Don't let me shit on you for getting value out of something, right? But like, I think it's an unhealthy thing to be focused on. Your placement in Akasha is an unhealthy thing to be focused on, because you're comparing to people who are literally potentially spending $20 a day in Genshin. I think it's more like $10 a day, but still ridiculous, right? Like, there's people in Akasha the people that have, you can see people that have like a lot of top 1% placements. Those people, I almost guarantee you, are spending $10 a day in Genshin. And because I think that's about how much it would take. Because the resin, if you want a resin refresh, the cost of this costs 50 Primogems. I think it doubles or something every time you do it. So if I do it once here, it costs 50 Primogems. If I do it again, it costs 100. So the functional cost is like $10 a day, which is absurd. And yeah. The set doesn't redeem her. No, I didn't say the set doesn't. No, the Dia's artifact set is kind of just shit garbage trash. But when it comes to, like, if you're trying to be a couple percentage better than someone else on a leaderboard, it is technically, on a math level, a couple percentage better. So, and specifically that was like a couple percentage better in like the 150% energy recharge category, which is oftentimes, very oftentimes, not enough energy recharge for Dia. But for what I was doing, it was actually fine. It didn't matter. I wasn't trying to get a top 1% Dia. I just accidentally happenstance into it because no one actually builds Dia that way. Yeah. Dia is good underwater though with 4-piece clam. I mean, that's true. Yeah, she does do really good in underwater exploration. So, anyways, I have 3 top 20 characters and 1 top 100 character on Akasha, and it's definitely hyper investment. Yeah. There's just really not that much reason to actually hyper invest, but Akasha can be like a really nice generic resource just to see artifact like the differences in how relevant different stats can be. So Dia set is actually a Nilu set because it's 2% HP. True. So anyways, I'll look through my chat quick. Lately, I've not been farming for artifacts. Yeah, that's fair. I don't blame you. I get more enjoyment, honestly, out of farming for artifacts than like wishing. I'll be completely honest. The real gacha content for Genshin for me is artifacts. I get more dopamine from that. But even artifacts, though, like I barely get any value from it. Like it's very rare that I get any excitement out of leveling any artifact now. Like in the eye video, if I didn't seem that excited or that sad, and I was just kind of like whelmed by how that artifact that I got, which is an extraordinarily rare artifact on the eye video, that EM circlet with double crit ER on a 4-line. Like, yeah, I'm just very whelmed in general by most of the RNG elements of this game, because I don't know. I think about it as such a, like, I know how all these things work that, like, it doesn't even excite me anymore, unless something extraordinarily unlikely happens. But anyways, X.5 curse. Yeah, it is kind of an X.5 curse for the next patch. What's up with Chiori, William? The hour, like the majority of the stream, like an hour and a half of the stream was about Chiori. So I'm gonna end the stream actually here just shortly. But William and anyone else joining right now, rewind the stream, and YouTube lets you do that at any dang moment you feel like. Chiori is boring, is basically the conclusion, and a rock is better than her. It was a fun stream. It was fun kind of bashing on Chiori. She's not a useless unit, but she's not great, and I think they're I don't know. I hope she's not a sign of what is to come for Geo. Navia was such a positive sign for what they could do with Geo, in my opinion, even if I don't think Navi was perfect in some ways. But then Chiori was a reversal, hard reversal of the potential interesting things Geo could do. She just does nothing that's relevant and enables nothing new in the game. So it's not like she's not so bad that it's impossible to get use out of her, to be clear. It's just she's boring. And boring is not what you want in a game, because we play video games to have fun, is it not? And boring is not fun. Boring, I'd say, is the most opposite of fun. That's usually what people use boring like as a term, I would think. So, anyways. Yeah, and no new 4-star characters either is part of the problem with the next patch too. There's not even, like, at least when Dia released, there was 2 bad characters to look forward to. Dia released with Mika, remember? The same patch that was Dia was Mika, which is a bit of a turd of a patch, if we're being honest, as far as characters. But hey, at least there was two turds to enjoy. Now we got 0 turds. Sorry, we just got 1 turd. Anyways, weird metaphor, I'm sorry. I regret skipping Navia so much I have nothing to pull for until Siege and Chlorine. I mean, you'll get... Navia will probably rerun relatively soon, I expect, so, you know. Assume, unless you plan on stopping playing the game in the next 3 months. I suspect she'll get a rerun within the next 3 months. Well, actually, 3 months implies the next 2 patches. Might be slightly more than 3 months. So, anyways. I suspect before 5.0. But, anyways. I didn't get Navia, to be clear. And I don't regret not getting Navia. I had my fun with her, playing with her on other people's accounts. And I think she's a good character. I think she's a well-balanced on-field unit that fulfills the ideal of what I could see Geo fulfilling in the current state of Genshin, and Chiori does not. So, anywho's. Mika is everything physical doesn't need and nothing it needs. Yeah, exactly. Mika is to physical as Chiori is to constructs. So, anyways. Dia is fun at least, even if her kit is buggered in all sorts of ways. Exactly. I agree. Like, if I had realized how fun Dia was going to be, I really wish, like, I hadn't gotten into the habit of, like, you know, borrowing people's accounts or whatever, back when Dia released. If I had been doing that, but I wouldn't say I have a habit of doing that, by the way, but I have more connections for people that pull for characters, in that, like, if I want to try testing out Chiori, I don't need to pull for Chiori, right? I have the privilege of being in that position, which is nice. Although, actually, I don't know who I know right now that would actually be pulling Chiori, so I can't actually say that with Chiori, funnily enough. But, anyways, I wish I had played with Dia during her original banner, because I absolutely would have pulled for her in her original banner if I had realized how fun she was. And then I would have C1 Dia on my main account. But sadly, I am stuck with C0 forever, because I can never lose another 50-50 to her, apparently. I have C5 Kaching. Ugh. Whatever. It's fine. I'll be... once I get C6 Kaching, I'll mess around with Kaching, and I'll probably like her. But, anyways. So, yeah. She's one of the best daily driver characters. Dia? Yeah, she's okay as an overworld character. She's not bad. But that's... I mean, it's not that much of a selling point, in my opinion. I don't know. She's... I don't know. She definitely has a lot more overworld utility, particularly with the underwater stuff, than a lot of other characters. So it kind of is a selling point for Dia, but... Anyways, like I mentioned earlier in the stream, I think it is genuinely easier to find use cases for Dia and get value out of Dia than it is for Chiori. Even if Chiori is better as far as like damage output goes and whatever. So, you know, if you're someone specifically who is interested in, you know, mono Geo teams that use Zhongli specifically already, and you don't care about Geo team variations that we showed earlier in the stream, like with Farina and Plunge Ito things, you only care about mono Geo, you don't want to even consider for Farina or Plunge or whatever other variations, then hey, Chiori's the right character for you. Which is such a specific context, and that's very few people. I think even Geo players, mono Geo enjoyers, aren't that interested in Chiori. If you didn't get that impression from Binge early in the stream. Right. So anyways, I doubt Chiori's going to be standard. She's too specifically balanced, it feels like, to be in this weird niche of being a side grade to Albedo. And Albedo's a limited 5-star. So, I don't know. I wouldn't remain optimistic that Chiori is going to be standard. I'd be fine with it. I would be completely happy losing a 50-50 to Chiori. Give me... I would have things I could mess around... Well, actually, would I? I don't know. I actually don't know what I could do with her. She would not be very useful. So... I don't know. Chiori. Oh, Chiori. C6 Kaching more like another official team? Yeah, I mean, that's just how Kaching, that's just how Electro DPSs be. They do like the official, but official is not required for most Electro DPSs. She's just a, she can usually increase team DPS, single target DPS at least. So, can't the same be said about Dia? What do you mean? That yeah, cannot the same be said about Gia? In what regard? I've already, again, comparing the two, like, I think it is easier to conceive of ways where Dia can be useful compared to Chiori. Not on a, what is this character's damage output level, but what does this character do that could be useful, right? Because Dia does things that can be useful, even if she's not best at some of them. Whereas Chiori does not. She has some interesting things about her kit, but they're more like interesting ideas that I hope to see elsewhere. So, the nicheness of her kit. But again, like, I don't know. I've waited weeks to do this stream, partially because I was busy with other things, but also because, like, I wanted to, like, see other people's opinions, see what the beta changes, and see if anyone had ideas that was like, hey, Chiori can make sense in here. And, like, she just doesn't make sense outside of a really specific context. Whereas, like, Dia, you can easily see, like, okay, even if she's not great at it, she can be a burgeon trigger. And she can offer her intended utility of, like, being a tanking unit that absorbs some damage for you and then, you know, heals you. And she has overworld utility both in underwater as, like, an auto healer underwater, and her, you know, just her speed bonus passive in overworld during the daytime. And she has use in Nubilette teams, wherein, you know, Nubilette Hyperbloom with Dia is actually really, really kind of interesting because she provides the interruption resistance to Nubilette that he wants at the start of his rotation, but also then it manages to apply just enough pyro to not interfere with things, but enough that you can actually get some vapes off of Nubilette. And that's really cool. That's a really, really cool interaction. Like, Dia for Nubilette Hyperbloom is really freaking cool. That's a really cool interaction. Can we think of those things for Chiori? Not really, because Geo doesn't interact with anything. Like, it's a downside of Geo on top of all the downsides of, like, how they designed her kit, specifically in the context of Geo. They very specifically seem to have designed her for operating in this weird niche of Mono Geo that isn't really a relevant thing, and isn't even something that, like, hyper invested Geo players like Binge I had on the stream earlier care about anymore. And like Mono Geo is kind of a solved thing, so a new thing for Mono Geo doesn't really do much. That's not, if it's not just straight up power creeping, and she's not really straight up power creeping, she's just side grading. So, yeah. And like the idea of Chio construct synergy is good, but like, again, showed in the stream earlier that she doesn't really have construct synergy. A rock has better construct synergy than Chiori. Like, that was a joke, but it's not wrong. That rock in the chasm has better construct synergy than Chiori does. So, yeah, they can do a lot more. The point is, they could do a lot more with Geo than they are doing. There are ideas that people have that make sense and shouldn't and could be new things that open up Geo's relevance, but they don't want to encroach on that. Instead, they just want to make another niche unit for Mono Geo. Like, why? What's the point, right? She's boring. She doesn't do anything. How can Dia do Hyperbloom? Dia doesn't do the Hyperbloom. Dia is in the flex slot of a Hyperbloom team because of the fact that she doesn't interfere much with the Hyperbloom things. She can enable. Fine, I'll end the stream with showing Dia in Nubilette Hyperbloom. Let's see. Where's my thing? There it is. So yeah, Hyperbloom, the spice of Hyperbloom is the flex slot, right? Nuvilet Hyperbloom is doing, Nuvilet Dia. Nuvilet Hyperbloom is doing. Nuvilet is the Hydro. Your Electro player, be it Raiden or Kuki, doesn't really matter. And then Nahida, ideally, because it's Nahida. And well, actually, if you're doing Dia with Nuvilet, you probably really want Nahida for the. I don't think Dia with Nuvilet Hyperbloom will be able to get the vapes from Nuvilet if you don't have the burning aura that's sustained with Nahida's Dendra application. But so this is probably something that's not relevant without Nahida. That's my point. Blinding white screen. It's the first time I've touched Nuvilet in like 2 months, by the way. This is not. We'll do Kukias, who I have built.
What'd they do this time?
We'll do Nahida.
There's still so many places for us to explore.
And Dia. Dia's build should be on instructors in this team, by the way. I'm not going to change her build, though.
I got your boss.
So I'm going to do this because I like them being in this order because tall, slightly shorter, slightly shorter, slightly shorter. It's like a perfect line between the tops of their heads. Anyway, that's why I named it Nuvi Line. Anyways, so... Oh, I didn't deploy the team. I also don't know if Nuvilet's build is correct, but the main thing to pay attention for here is like the amount of vapes he gets, for example. Yeah, Chiori brings nothing new to the table, exactly. She has like some ideas of facades of something new, but then doesn't actually do anything new, is what I would describe it as. Okay, I should probably restore my energy here. What are you? You're on Freedom Sworn, that's fine. Okay, we should get our burst back from the next skill. Okay. I think Nuvilet's mostly built. Yeah, he should be fine. Alright. So, do this, do that. Alright. So you notice the, like, 50k, 40k there? That was... Oh, dang it. That was him getting some vapes in, right? Because Dia applies uniquely, like, not enough pyro to interfere that meaningfully with stuff here. But she applies just enough to have the burning aura. Really? Have the burning aura. I obviously don't have enough ER here, but I also probably bungled up things. She applies just enough pyro. There's no Dia skill going right now, but she applies just enough pyro to be able to give a little bit of pyro aura that gives him occasional vapes, which is an extra damage from Nuvilet. And then on top of that, she provides the interruption resistance at the start of her skill, such that you can resist being interrupted by things, and that's good. So because being interrupted with Nuvilet is kind of rough. Like, you don't need his freaking C1, right? So. And it's mostly just like the start of your rotation that you need to avoid getting interrupted from, like you saw happen there earlier, because if you get interrupted right at the start of the charge attack, you just lose a lot of DPS from Nuvilet. So as long as you don't get interrupted at the very start, you can just kind of like strafe around, right? So, let's see if we can... Ow. See? Didn't have interruption resistance. I don't know. Is it the best Nuvilet team ever? No, I'm not trying to make that out to be the case. I played that terribly there, but it does provide some amount of value, right? And those kinds of things just will not exist for Chiori because Geo, and they didn't actually try to give her any meaningful interaction in her own kit. That isn't just, oh, screw you for not doing this thing. The interaction with Chiori is, oh, you're not using these specific characters with Chiori. She does half damage. Half damage is a little bit of an exaggeration, but you know. But yeah, it's not that hard, I think, to conceptualize, even to like casual players, how Dia can add value for that interruption resistance, even with its passive being like annoyingly low uptime, right? With only 9 seconds uptime. She absorbs some damage. She can make your team more survivable. She can hold instructors to increase your hyperbloom damage in this context, or your vape damage, right? And like, I don't know. This is something that's uniquely doable because of the fact that Dia does not have very high pyro application, but she does apply pyro enough that in conjunction with Nahida's Dendro application, you get enough burning aura, just enough to get occasional vapes. But it doesn't actually interfere with your, core generation or whatever, so you can still do hyperbloom things. And so I think it's one of those cool nuances that exists with Dia, that actually takes advantage of her kit and how she functions. You don't use her burst in this team, but that's fine. So yeah. Is Dia an amazing character? By no means, no. she's not great, but I don't know. She's at least fun in a way that I think Chiori is not. I can't conceive of a way that Chiori would be actually uniquely fun. So, yeah. You can get use out of her if you want her. And that's the same as any character in Genshin. You'll be able to find ways to get use out of her. But she's boring. And things that are boring in video games are not fun, usually. But I could be wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong. We'll see. We'll see. Alright. I think that's all I got for the stream. Would Farina instead of Kuki be better if you want vapes? What? What are you talking about? If you remove Kuki, you kind of don't have Hyperbloom going. If you're adding more Hydra, that's not going to be more vapes. That's going to be less vapes for Nuvilet. Like, Farina might steal some of the vapes in that context, but it would, like, no. If you want to do a pure vape Nuvilet, there's lots of various teams you can do for Nuvilet, but no. So specifically a Hyperbloom Nuvilet that gives a lot of relevance to using Dia as the flex slot in a Hyperbloom Nuvilet team. Talked about Chiori's kit earlier, Karuki, but I'm in on the stream. If anyone just joined now, you can rewind the stream. I mean, this was 2.5 hours with an hour of rambling about different things at the end, so I don't know. Hopefully gain some amount of value. I gotta go call my mom. It's her birthday, so yarp. Hopefully you enjoyed, and buckle up for the most boring patch that Genshin has ever had in a few weeks. But I don't know. I have some content planned during that. Ooh, that's a interesting screen. I have some content planned, but I don't know. I'll probably at least have a video trying to break down the new banner that's rumored, but we don't have any concrete info about that yet, so I'm not even gonna bother saying anything about it. Need actual info about that before judging that to any meaningful degree. I've rambled off about hypotheticals with it on my Discord server earlier this week, but I'm not gonna say anything on stream yet. I'll probably have some kind of video of, like, what does the current one I'm probably planning, because I'd rather spend my money because I can get some money back by nature of the views on it, right? I'd rather spend my money, like it's saying, like how much do you get from the new banner if you buy out the top-up shop, and I'll use that as an opportunity to be like, all right, here's what we got from spending X amount of dollars on this new banner that exists, and then I'll have a breakdown of like how the banner works and if it's actually worth it, etc., etc. But anyways, I have no idea how worthwhile it'll be at this point because we have no idea what it's actually going to be other than like really vague rumors. The exact implementation is what's going to determine its relevance, and who knows what it's going to be right now. So anyways, we'll see. Bye-bye. Hopefully you enjoyed. Oh, is Ryvius still watching, by the way? I think I accidentally ignored Ryvius's thing earlier. Well, I think Ryvius is on my Discord server, but Ryvius, I think you donated earlier, and I think we were talking and I ignored it by accident. So anyways, if you're still watching, Ryvius, thank you. Wuthering Waves, I haven't seen that much of it. I will try it. It's a gacha game though, and I only have so much time in my life for gacha games. So if it's a real competent competitor to Genshin, I will be happy because like if there's no competitor to Genshin in this massive live service open world game, right? And I if it's a competent competitor, it could be really, really good. But I will withhold any specific thoughts on whether or not until I actually try it. I will not be kind to it if it has things I don't like. Just as I'm very critical of Genshin, but a heavy strike against Wuthering Waves. It's just being a gacha game, but it ultimately depends on where the balance is in the gacha and the gameplay for me to like determine how. Because the gacha as an inclusion is not a selling point to a game to me. It's a heavy anti-selling point, and the game has to try really hard to justify it being a gacha. As its monetization system to support the game. And I think Genshin does a fairly decent job at justifying it by the amount of content they offer and continued development. Decent, I said. There's a lot of problems with Genshin, a lot of things I want to see them improve, and things that I think they have not improved enough. But, so my biggest hope for Wuthering Waves is honestly just that both of them, I want both Genshin and Wuthering Waves to flourish because of it. My concern with Wuthering Waves is that it's just a game that is showing up and being positioned by the company, making it as being like, this is Genshin for those of you that are complaining about Genshin, and therefore they just try to do a bunch of things that are the same as Genshin, while like masking a facade of, look, we have a skip button that makes us so much better. Like, whoop-de-doo. Right? Like just having a skip button does not make the game better. I'm sorry. So we'll see. I'll judge it when I actually try it myself. Will I actually continue playing it long term? That'll really, really, really depend on how good the game itself is.